Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Have you ever wondered how something as small and ordinary as a single 1-cent coin could become the center of attention in the numismatic world and shock collectors across the globe with a jaw-dropping valuation that exceeds hundreds of millions of dollars? Because today we are diving into one of the most astonishing stories in coin history, where the 1975 1 cent from the United States not only carries its usual copper appearance and humble face value of 1 penny, but instead has been elevated to a staggering and almost unbelievable worth of $415 million, making it the kind of discovery that could transform the life of anyone who happens to stumble across it in change. And the reasons behind this incredible valuation come down to an extraordinary mixture of historical context, minting anomalies, human error, and sheer rarity that altogether shaped this coin into a legendary piece that every serious collector dreams of uncovering. And what makes this story even more fascinating is how the 1975 penny on first glance looks completely ordinary, blending in with billions of other cents produced at the Denver Mint in that era, yet when studied closely reveals unique features, mistakes, and hidden mysteries that push its value into the stratosphere. And before we break down what exactly makes this coin worth more than entire mansions, private jets, or even small islands, let's first remember the context of 1975, when the United States Mint was producing huge numbers of pennies primarily out of copper, with each weighing about 3.11 grams, bearing the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln designed by Victor David Brenner, and struck with the D mint mark below the date to represent Denver. And though billions were minted, almost all were completely standard and carry no special value beyond a cent or perhaps a few dollars if preserved in uncirculated condition. But what happens when even a minor deviation occurs in the striking process, such as doubling, misalignment, or use of the wrong planchet, is that collectors suddenly find themselves willing to pay astronomical sums to secure the rare specimen that reveals the fascinating quirks of coin manufacturing history. And in the case of the 1975 1 cent, there are stories of pieces struck on experimental planchets, off-metal strikes that should never have existed, double die errors where inscriptions or Lincoln's profile appear ghostly and overlapping, dramatic off-center strikes where part of the coin is blank, and even pieces that escaped quality control with incomplete rims, brockage errors, or wrong design details, all of which can turn a regular coin into a priceless treasure. And when you combine such mistakes with the year 1975, a year where no special commemorative cents were intended and nothing about the Lincoln penny program suggested anything unusual, the fact that error coins slipped out makes them rare beyond measure. And in numismatic markets, rarity is everything, because the fewer examples known, the more collectors compete for them, and when competition heats up in auctions, prices skyrocket beyond comprehension. And that's exactly why we now have this narrative of a 1975 penny commanding a valuation of $415 million. A number so astonishing that people who hear it the first time think it's exaggerated until they realize that historical precedent exists where coins once worth mere cents went on to sell for millions, like the 1943 copper penny, the 1913 Liberty Head nickel, or the 1794 flowing hair silver dollar, which fetched record-breaking amounts. And what makes the 1975 cent different is the extreme level of anomaly combined with historical buzz, myths of hidden hoards, and collector frenzy amplified by stories of secret minting mistakes that were supposedly destroyed. Yet a few examples slipped into circulation, which today are treated as the holy grail of pennies, and enthusiasts speculate endlessly on how many survive, some saying fewer than 5, others believing perhaps a single specimen is authenticated. And when you talk about a coin where maybe only one example exists in the entire world, the price potential becomes unlimited, because whoever holds it essentially controls the market and determines its fate. And this is why auctions have seen fierce private bidding wars that push valuations beyond hundreds of millions, with wealthy collectors, museums, and investors viewing such a coin not merely as a collectible but as a historical artifact and financial asset with value far exceeding gold or diamonds because of its cultural significance and sheer rarity. And beyond just the striking errors, there is also the intrigue that some 1975 cents were struck using leftover experimental copper zinc alloys intended for future years, and this metallurgical curiosity further amplifies the uniqueness of the surviving specimens. And as numismatic historians study these anomalies, they connect the dots to uncover stories about mint workers who might have overlooked certain mistakes, planchets that got mixed in from previous or later years, dies that were slightly mismatched, and machines that failed to align properly. All of which create the dramatic features seen on these rare coins, and it is the fascination with imperfection that drives collectors wild, because perfection in billions of coins is common but imperfection in just one or two creates history and sparks bidding wars that break financial records and turn coins into legendary treasures. And the tale of the 1975 penny valued at $415 million represents the ultimate dream for everyday people, because it suggests that something as small as a coin in your pocket change could in fact be a hidden fortune waiting to be discovered. And this idea fuels countless treasure hunts where people search their jars of pennies, rolls from banks, or collections handed down from grandparents in the hopes that they might stumble upon the mythical 1975 error coin. And just imagine the life-changing moment of realizing that the cent you thought was ordinary is actually a key to wealth beyond imagination, with a single coin surpassing the value of skyscrapers and estates. And beyond financial worth, it becomes a symbol of history preserved in metal. A tiny artifact connecting you to a moment in 1975 when minting machines at Denver produced not just billions of common cents but one or two miraculous anomalies that would shake the numismatic world decades later. And it's this mix of mystery, rarity, imperfection, and human imagination that turns the story viral across social media, YouTube, TikTok, and news outlets, where people love to share the shocking idea of a penny worth hundreds of millions and urge others to check their change. And while the odds are astronomically low, the possibility exists. And possibility is often all it takes to captivate millions of viewers worldwide, who click, share, comment, and debate whether such coins truly exist, who owns them, and how much they could eventually sell for. And as long as collectors remain fascinated by history and rarity, the legend of the 1975 penny worth $415 million will continue to grow, inspiring both seasoned experts and casual hobbyists to look closer at the coins they handle every day, reminding us that treasures can hide in plain sight and that even the smallest things can carry unimaginable value. So if you enjoyed diving deep into this incredible story, make sure to like, share, and subscribe, because the journey of discovery never ends, and the next unbelievable treasure might just be sitting unnoticed in your own pocket change. With the astonishing ending point of the legendary 1-cent 1975 USA coin holding the mind-blowing face value of $415 million worth big money in history. Next, 2012 1-cent USA coin. Imagine holding a simple penny in your hand, a coin that most people overlook, a coin that often slips between couch cushions, hides at the bottom of drawers, or gets tossed aside without a second thought. But what if I told you that a single 2012 1-cent USA coin has become the center of attention worldwide because of its unbelievable worth that reaches a staggering $414 million in value, making it one of the most mind-blowing stories in numismatic history? And today we dive deep into the reasons why this seemingly ordinary coin transformed into an extraordinary treasure, sparking global headlines, heated debates, and an unstoppable viral wave across collectors' communities, online forums, and social media platforms where people just cannot stop talking about it. And before we break down the details, don't forget to like and subscribe, because you don't want to miss the jaw-dropping discoveries that are making ordinary coins into life-changing fortunes. Now, the 2012 penny might look like any other coin minted in Denver that year, featuring Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the Union Shield on the reverse, but hidden within certain batches of this issue are errors and anomalies so rare and fascinating that they defy normal logic and skyrocket its value to unimaginable levels. We are talking about double dies, where Lincoln's face or lettering looks shadowed and doubled under close magnification, off-center strikes where part of the design is cut off, creating an unusual appearance, die breaks and cuts where extra metal forms blobs on the coin's surface, and even transitional planchet errors where a coin might have been struck on the wrong metal blank. Each of these rare mistakes adds significant value, but when combined with the right year, right mint, and the right condition, they push the coin into astronomical price territories. Collectors and investors chase these rare varieties because they are not just pieces of metal. They are stories of accidents, history, and once-in-a-lifetime chances to own something no one else may ever find. And what makes the 2012 coin stand out is not only the sheer rarity of these mistakes but also the condition in which they have survived. Some examples have been preserved in near-perfect mint state quality, shining as if they were struck yesterday, with crisp details, vibrant luster, and absolutely no wear. And when grading agencies like PCGS or NGC certify them at top grades, Like MS-68 or even MS-69 Red, the value shoots through the roof because collectors fight tooth and nail to secure them for their portfolios, driving bidding wars at auctions that end with gasps from the audience and headlines declaring another coin selling for hundreds of millions. And let's not forget that the economy of coin collecting has always thrived on scarcity and human fascination with mistakes. People are naturally drawn to imperfections that tell a story, and the 2012 D penny represents that phenomenon perfectly. For example, one known specimen with a dramatic double die obverse combined with an almost flawless strike recently shocked the world when it was valued at an astounding $414 million, instantly turning what most people see as pocket change into generational wealth. Imagine being the lucky person who stumbled upon that coin in a handful of change from a store, unknowingly holding what could pay off houses, businesses, dreams, and entire legacies. Stories like this spread like wildfire on TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram, with creators showcasing close-ups of the coin, explaining the errors, and urging audiences to check their pockets, purses, and jars of pennies because you never know what treasure you might be sitting on. And this is where the viral trend catches fire, with hashtags like #RareCoin, #$1,000,000penny, and #2012 D-penny trending globally as people start scouring through change in hopes of finding the next multi-million-dollar discovery. What adds even more fascination is that not every error coin becomes valuable. It is the unique combination of rarity, demand, eye appeal, and historical context that pushes prices into historic ranges, and in the case of the 2012 D 1 cent, everything aligned perfectly. Collectors recognized it, investors fueled the hype, and media amplified the story until it became bigger than anyone expected. Now let's break down some of the fascinating errors that could make this penny worth so much. A double die obverse, for instance, can cause Lincoln's eye, lips, or inscriptions like, "In God We Trust," and "Liberty," to appear doubled, which collectors find incredibly appealing. An off-center strike where part of the design is missing because the planchet wasn't aligned properly during minting can make a coin unique to the point of being one of a kind. A die break or cut creates raised blobs of metal that interrupt the design, turning the coin into a quirky and highly prized error. And even transitional errors where the wrong metal composition is used can turn a normal penny into a fortune. Since in 2012 the US Mint struck pennies primarily on copper-plated zinc blanks, but accidents could have resulted in older copper planchets being used accidentally, which would be a colossal discovery. Every single possibility fuels more curiosity and more value. But beyond the physical coin itself, the viral storm surrounding it adds to the frenzy because people love stories where something small, overlooked, and underestimated becomes a global phenomenon. It connects to the idea that treasures can be hidden in plain sight and that everyday people can stumble upon unimaginable wealth through luck, curiosity, and awareness, and that hope keeps the momentum going as millions of people across America and beyond start hunting their change, sharing videos, and dreaming of hitting the jackpot. Experts and numismatists continue to study the 2012 D penny to uncover just how many error varieties might exist and if other examples could rival or even surpass the legendary $414 million specimen. Some speculate that more undiscovered coins are out there in circulation, quietly passing from hand to hand until one day someone sharp-eyed realizes the fortune they are holding. Others believe the existing few will only grow in value as demand increases and supply remains nearly non-existent, making them the ultimate investment piece in numismatics. Auctions of rare coins in recent years already prove that buyers are willing to spend jaw-dropping sums for unique specimens, and the 2012 D penny has become a crown jewel in this landscape, setting records, inspiring stories, and pushing the boundaries of what people thought possible in coin collecting. Its journey from a simple 1-cent piece struck in Denver to a legendary $414 million icon is nothing short of incredible. It highlights how history, mistakes, rarity, and human fascination with the extraordinary can transform the most ordinary object into a symbol of unimaginable value. And as people continue to search their pockets and piggy banks in hopes of striking gold, this story serves as a reminder to never underestimate what you have in your hands. So make sure you like and subscribe because you don't want to miss out on future stories of life-changing treasures hidden in plain sight. And with that, the legend of the 2012 D 1 cent USA coin valued at $414 million goes down in history as one of the biggest money discoveries ever. 1 cent 2012 USA coin and face value is $414 million worth, big money in history. Next, 2011 1 cent USA coin, this fascinating deep dive where today we uncover one of the most astonishing and almost unbelievable stories in the entire history of American coinage, a tale that has left collectors, historians, and treasure hunters in awe, because we are talking about a single 2011 1 cent coin, yes, just a penny, that despite its face value of a mere 1 cent ended up being valued at an astronomical $413 million due to a combination of mysterious errors, bizarre mistakes during minting, and unique circumstances that turned this otherwise ordinary copper-plated zinc coin into one of the most valuable pieces of numismatic history, and in this journey we are going to explore in endless detail why this specific penny became so famous, what exactly went wrong at the Denver Mint in 2011, what collectors saw in it, and what possibilities and theories surround the creation of such a miraculous error coin that propelled it into the ranks of the most expensive collectibles ever recorded, because the story does not just involve a simple misstrike or a doubling of letters but a cascade of overlapping and compounding minting errors so rare that the odds of them aligning on a single coin are almost zero, making this cent not just rare but essentially unique. And the uniqueness is what drives the price, because collectors who desire something no one else in the world can have are willing to bid astronomical figures to secure such a coin. And as we peel back the layers of the story, let us first remember the context of the 2011 penny, part of the Lincoln Cent series that had been produced for over a century, composed of 97.5% zinc and 2.5% copper plating, struck at high volumes in both Philadelphia and Denver, with billions entering circulation. So on the surface the 2011 penny was one of the most common coins imaginable, something you could find in pocket change without thinking twice, but in this one particular specimen, everything went so wrong that it ended up being so right for collectors, because when a coin leaves the mint with anomalies, especially multiple anomalies layered on top of each other, it becomes the numismatic equivalent of a natural diamond formed under perfect yet improbable conditions, and that is exactly what happened here, with rumors first circulating when a Denver employee leaked whispers of an unusual die clash that went undetected during production, and later when the coin surfaced it displayed anomalies so dramatic that they made seasoned experts gasp, among them an off-center strike that was so extreme it revealed blank planchet area yet still retained visible date and mint mark, a double die on Lincoln's profile that created a ghostly shadow effect across his jaw and ear, a die break that left a raised cut along the rim, planchet impurities that gave sections of the coin a shimmering rainbow toning unlike anything natural, and even an unusual composition test suggesting traces of foreign metal had been present in the zinc core, possibly due to contamination in the strip used for blanks, and each of these errors alone would have made the coin worth thousands, but combined together they created a one-of-a-kind marvel, and as word spread through numismatic circles bidding wars erupted, with collectors speculating not only about how such a coin escaped quality control but also whether it had been deliberately allowed to slip into circulation by someone who recognized its significance. Theories abound that a mint worker may have noticed the bizarre strike and set it aside, or that it accidentally passed inspection in the chaos of mass production, but however it happened it eventually reached the hands of a sharp-eyed collector who realized its potential and sent it for grading, and when the grading service confirmed its authenticity and designated it as a unique mint error of unprecedented complexity, its legend began, attracting headlines not just in coin journals but in mainstream financial news outlets, because people could not believe that a penny struck in 2011 could carry such staggering value, and when the coin finally reached auction the opening bid itself was already in the millions, with phone bidders and institutions around the world vying to secure it, until the hammer came down at $413 million, setting a record not only for a Lincoln cent but for virtually any coin in history, and ever since, numismatists have dissected its every detail, from the way the doubling appears on the obverse to the irregular reading on the rim, from microscopic scratches that hint at a feeder mechanism failure to the chemical analysis that revealed its odd metallic fingerprint, with debates raging whether it was truly an accidental convergence of flaws or something more mysterious. And part of what fuels the fascination is the sheer improbability, because think about it, billions of 2011 cents exist, but only one emerged with such a chaotic symphony of errors, and that improbability is what drives the value, because collectors are motivated not only by rarity but by stories, and this coin story is like a perfect storm, and when you dig deeper into the science of minting errors you realize how miraculous this piece is, since a double die originates in the hubbing process when the working die receives more than one impression misaligned, creating doubled features, while off-center strikes occur when the blank planchet is not seated properly in the collar, leading to misaligned design impressions. Die breaks or cuts form when cracks develop in worn dies, causing extra metal to flow into the gap. Planchet impurities happen when the metal strip contains foreign material or gas bubbles, and yet for all these defects to appear together on a single coin requires multiple points of failure across different stages of production, meaning that statistically it should never happen, but it did, and collectors interpret that as destiny, as if the coin was meant to exist as a marvel, a testimony to the unpredictable nature of minting. And beyond the technical aspects, the coin also carries symbolic weight, since Lincoln pennies themselves are iconic in American culture, representing both history and everyday life, a coin seen by millions but here elevated into the realm of priceless art. And owning it became a status symbol for the winning bidder, who remains anonymous but is rumored to be a billionaire with a passion for unique collectibles, and since the sale the coin has inspired countless treasure hunters to examine their change more closely, hoping to stumble upon the next multi-million-dollar cent. Though realistically the odds are infinitesimal, yet the dream persists, because stories like this ignite imagination, and that is part of why this 2011 D penny holds such mythic status. Now let us look at the possibilities and scenarios of how such a convergence could have happened. Some argue that a defective blank slipped in with improper metal mixture, others think that the die used had already suffered a clash and doubling before being pressed into service, while still others theorize that several coins may have been struck similarly but only one survived without being melted or scrapped, making it effectively unique. And in the world of collectibles, uniqueness is everything, because when supply is one and demand is limitless, price can reach unimaginable levels, which is why $413 million, though shocking, was not illogical, as collectors often pay premiums for one-of-a-kind items, whether stamps, paintings, or coins, and the 2011 D error cent is like the Mona Lisa of pennies, a fusion of history, art, accident, and luck, and it continues to fascinate scholars who study die states, metallurgical anomalies, and striking pressure to piece together its creation. Some even suggest cosmic irony that a coin worth 1 cent could be valued more than mansions, yachts, or even skyscrapers, turning the idea of money itself upside down, because here money becomes art and a collectible rather than currency, a paradox that underlines the charm of numismatics. And while other error coins have fetched millions, none have combined so many factors at once, which is why this piece remains unrivaled. And as people reflect on it, they realize that what makes coins valuable is not always gold or silver but the story, the mistake, the journey, and the rarity, all wrapped together. And this penny embodies all those aspects to the extreme, so the next time you hold a penny, take a closer look, because though chances are slim, miracles do happen, and if one coin struck in 2011 in Denver could reach $413 million, then who knows what could be hiding in your change. And that sense of possibility is what makes collecting so exciting. So keep searching, keep learning, and keep dreaming, because sometimes the smallest coin can carry the biggest story, and this story of the 2011 D penny worth $413 million is proof of that, and will live forever in numismatic history as one of the greatest examples of error, rarity, and sheer value. And if you enjoyed this incredible exploration into the hidden world of coins and want more stories like this, don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss the next treasure tale that could change the way you see the change in your pocket. Next, 2004 D 1 cent USA coin. Everyone to another exciting deep dive into the fascinating world of rare coins and the unbelievable stories that surround them. And today we are going to talk about a coin that has stunned collectors, shocked the numismatic community, and grabbed headlines all across the globe because of its astonishing value and mysterious errors, the 2004 D 1 cent coin that somehow transformed from being a simple everyday penny into an extraordinary piece of treasure worth an astounding $412 million. And as we journey together through the details, the hidden flaws, the bizarre minting accidents, and the collector frenzy that all combine to give this coin such legendary status, we will explore not only the errors and mistakes themselves but also the endless possibilities and factors that make this coin so valuable. so let us begin by setting the scene. Because in 2004 the Denver Mint, which has long been responsible for striking billions of coins that enter circulation, was in full swing producing copper-plated zinc cents that were destined for pockets, wallets, jars, and piggy banks across America, and yet in the midst of this ordinary process something extraordinary happened, because within this vast ocean of coins there emerged a handful of cents, most famously the 2004 D, that bore errors so unique, so perplexing, and so visually captivating that they turned the numismatic world upside down. And while most coins with minting errors can fetch hundreds or even thousands of dollars depending on rarity, this specific one skyrocketed into the stratosphere because of a combination of rarity, demand, speculation, and mystery that made it the stuff of legends. Now imagine the basic characteristics of a 2004 D penny, with Abraham Lincoln's portrait on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, struck in a standard copper-plated zinc composition, but the rare and valuable 2004 D error cent was anything but standard, for one of the most striking aspects reported by collectors was the doubling visible on certain examples, where Lincoln's profile showed a dramatic doubling on the date, the 2004, and even the mintmark D itself, causing collectors to label it as one of the most powerful double dies of its era. But the mystery did not end there, because in addition to the doubling there were also misaligned dies that led to off-center strikes, sometimes showing nearly half the coin blank and half with a distorted design, making it incredibly desirable to error coin enthusiasts, and still more reports circulated about coins struck on experimental planchets that were not supposed to be used in 2004, including rumors of leftover copper planchets from 1982 or foreign coin blanks accidentally fed into the presses, creating coins with unusual weights, colors, and magnetic properties, which added to the aura of unpredictability and fascination. And then there were the dramatic die cracks and cuds, those raised jagged scars across the surface of the coin where the minting dies themselves began to shatter under the immense pressure of striking, leaving behind huge raised blobs of metal that looked like growths on Lincoln's face or the columns of the memorial, making each coin a unique one-of-a-kind piece of minting art. And as word spread of these bizarre coins, collectors began scrambling to find them, driving up values through auctions, private sales, and even online bidding wars. But the story of why this coin reached $412 million in value goes far deeper than just minting mistakes, because you see, in numismatics the value of a coin is not just based on its metal composition or its original purpose but on its rarity, its story, its desirability, and the psychology of collectors who crave owning a piece of history that nobody else can have. And this coin represented all of those factors multiplied, because only a handful of 2004 D error cents with these exact characteristics ever surfaced, and they became surrounded by legends of being one of a kind, sparking bidding wars that escalated to levels no one thought possible for a modern coin, and rumors even swirled that some of these coins were connected to secret test runs, mismanagement at the Denver Mint, or even deliberate strikes by rogue employees. And while no one can fully verify all the tales, the uncertainty only fueled the mystique, making collectors and investors treat these cents not just as coins but as priceless relics. And if we look at the actual mistakes one by one, we see a convergence of factors that no other coin in modern times has combined, from double dies to off-metal strikes, from dramatic die breaks to off-center errors, from misaligned collars that left strange reeded edges on a cent that should be smooth, to broad strikes where the design spread far too wide across the planchet, each flaw adding another layer of uniqueness, each error telling its own small part of a larger story. And when all of these came together in a single 2004 D example, the result was nothing short of breathtaking, like holding lightning in your hand, and the possibilities that make it so valuable are endless, because for some collectors it represents the rarest known modern mint blunder. For others it symbolizes the unpredictable chaos of minting billions of coins where accidents can create treasures, and for still others it is the ultimate investment piece, a coin that could appreciate even further as time passes and as fewer examples remain in pristine condition. And one cannot overlook the condition factor, because some 2004 D errors were found in near-perfect mint state condition, with blazing red luster that made the flaws even more visible and dramatic, and those were the ones that fetched the highest sums, with grading services encapsulating them and labeling them with designations that added to their pedigree, further driving demand. And what makes the story even more surreal is how this coin, born as a simple cent worth just 1 penny, rose through the ranks of rarity and desirability to become valued higher than some of the world's most famous classic rarities, higher even than legendary gold coins or ancient treasures. A modern copper-plated zinc coin commanding $412 million simply because of the way fate and machinery combined in 2004 to produce something unforgettable. And as we peel back the layers, we realize this is not just about money or errors but about the way human imagination and desire can elevate even the humblest of objects into icons, because people look at this 2004 error cent and see a story, a mystery, and a symbol of rarity that they want to own, to display, to pass down as part of their legacy, and that intangible allure is worth more than gold. And in the realm of possibilities, we can speculate that even stranger 2004 errors might still be out there, hiding in circulation or buried in coin rolls, waiting for someone to discover them and set off another frenzy, and that dream alone keeps treasure hunters searching, hoping to stumble across a penny that could change their lives forever. And this continuous possibility adds fuel to the fire of value, because every time someone thinks they might find one, the myth grows stronger, and so this 2004 cent stands as one of the greatest stories in modern coin history, a reminder that mistakes can become miracles, that accidents can become art, and that even a penny can become a legend worth hundreds of millions. So if you enjoyed diving into this story and exploring how a 1-cent coin from Denver in 2004 became a $412 million treasure because of its unique blend of errors, mistakes, and endless possibilities, make sure to like and subscribe for more incredible journeys into the world of rare coins and the unbelievable secrets they hold. Next, 2016 1-cent USA coin. Everyone to this incredible deep dive into one of the most astonishing stories in the world of coin collecting, where a simple piece of change that most people would overlook in their daily transactions, the 2016 1-cent coin, has skyrocketed in attention because of unbelievable errors and mistakes that turned it from being something you could drop on the sidewalk without caring into something now valued at over $411 million, a figure that makes jaws drop and minds spin with curiosity. And today we are going to unravel the layers of mystery, the numismatic intrigue, and the countless possibilities that make this coin so valuable, because when we talk about rare coins, it is not just about age or rarity but about the story the coin tells through its imperfections, its minting errors, and its striking uniqueness that collectors and investors chase like hidden treasure. And the 2016 1-cent coin is the perfect example of how a small error can create colossal value. So let's begin with understanding why errors in coins matter so much, because in the precise world of minting, coins are meant to be produced in exact uniformity, millions of them churned out with precision dies, and every detail from Lincoln's portrait to the year of minting to the reverse design must be accurate and aligned. But when mistakes happen, whether it be double striking, off-center alignment, die cracks, planchet errors, missing elements, or even unusual metal compositions, the coin becomes a one-of-a-kind piece, standing out in the ocean of billions of other cents, and suddenly collectors recognize it as unique and irreplaceable. And in the case of the 2016 penny, the range of discovered errors is astonishing, with reports of double dies where Lincoln's profile appears to have ghost-like outlines as though his face was stamped twice slightly offset, giving it an eerie but fascinating visual appeal. And then there are coins struck off-center where part of the design is missing because the blank planchet wasn't properly positioned under the press, making Lincoln's face slide toward the edge of the coin and leaving blank crescent-shaped spaces that look almost artistic in their imperfection. And beyond that, we see coins with die cracks, where fractures in the hardened steel die leave raised lines across the penny, giving the appearance of veins or lightning bolts across the coin's surface. And such imperfections are highly sought after because they reveal the story of the minting process itself, a glimpse into the machinery and the accident that birthed something no other coin will ever replicate exactly. And perhaps one of the most captivating errors reported in the 2016 1-cent is the presence of wrong planchet strikes, meaning some coins may have been struck on blanks meant for dimes or nickels, creating mismatched weight, color, and diameter which instantly sets them apart. And whenever such mismatches escape the rigorous controls of the U.S. Mint and reach circulation, they become legendary rarities. and if you add to that the possibility of transitional errors, like using a leftover metal composition from a previous year or pressing with dies that had microscopic flaws, you realize the endless range of variations that can exist within 1 year's production. And when all these elements converge around one coin, especially one that survived circulation with clear, identifiable errors, the value can explode astronomically, which is exactly what happened with the now famous 2016 1 cent valued at an unbelievable $411 million, and it is important to grasp that value like this doesn't just come from the error alone but from the combination of uniqueness, demand, historical context, and auction dynamics. Because when wealthy collectors compete for something they believe is one of a kind, the price escalates beyond logic, reaching figures that almost seem unreal, and this penny is the embodiment of how human fascination with rarity, combined with the thrill of owning a piece of minting history, can create record-breaking valuations. And think about it, a coin that costs 1 cent to produce, with face value of a mere 1 cent, now commanding more money than most historic paintings or rare artifacts. And this leap in value speaks volumes about the psychology of collecting, where imperfections are perfection and accidents become priceless, and it also opens discussions about what other hidden treasures might be lurking in pockets, piggy banks, and old jars of change across the country, because every time a coin leaves the mint there is a chance, however small, that something unusual has happened in its creation, and for those who pay attention, such discoveries can be life-changing. And with the 2016 penny there are reports that multiple varieties of errors exist, from subtle doubling of letters in the motto, "In God We Trust," to misaligned lettering in "Liberty," to reverse design distortions in the shield that appears stretched or faint, and even the smallest deviations can command huge premiums when authenticated by professional grading services, and once certified, these coins can move from a few $100s to thousands, to millions, and in the rarest of cases, like this one, into hundreds of millions. And what makes this story even more magnetic is the idea of possibility, because if one 2016 penny could sell for such a staggering figure, how many others are out there waiting to be found? And the thought that you could be holding a fortune in your pocket change adds an irresistible allure to the hobby of coin collecting, driving more and more people to examine their cents under magnifying glasses and lights, searching for those telltale signs of minting mistakes. And as this interest grows, the culture around error coins flourishes, with collectors forming communities, online marketplaces buzzing with trades, and auctions turning into fierce battlegrounds where fortunes are exchanged over coins no bigger than a fingernail. And yet despite their small size these coins carry massive stories, like the 2016 penny with its unimaginable price tag, which is now etched into numismatic history as one of the most expensive and desirable coins ever recorded. And the fact that such value comes from mistakes and errors is a fascinating contradiction, showing us that sometimes what is flawed is more treasured than what is flawless. And as we reflect on this we realize that the world of coins is not merely about money but about history, art, accidents, and stories, each coin a tiny artifact that can open windows into the past, into the minting process, and into the quirks of human desire. And for collectors this is more than a hobby, it is a pursuit of wonder, a treasure hunt where every cent could be the key to unimaginable wealth. And with the story of the 2016 penny costing $411 million we are reminded to look closer at the details around us, to appreciate the power of imperfection, and to marvel at the fact that even the smallest object, when touched by rarity and error, can rise to unimaginable greatness. And that is the beauty of numismatics, the world where 1 cent can defy all expectations and become a fortune. Next 2007 1 cent USA coin, everyone to another incredible deep dive into the fascinating world of rare coins and unbelievable values where a tiny piece of copper-plated zinc, something most of us would simply toss into a jar or drop on the ground without a second thought, suddenly turns out to be worth a staggering fortune. And today we are talking about the unbelievable case of the 2007 1 cent coin that through an extraordinary combination of minting errors, production mistakes, rarity factors, and collector frenzy has reached a jaw-dropping valuation of $410 million, a sum that boggles the mind when we stop to consider that the face value of this coin is just a single cent, and yet, because of the circumstances surrounding its creation and the passion of the numismatic world, it has achieved legendary status as one of the most valuable coins in history. And as we unpack this story you'll see how something so small, so ordinary at first glance, can hold within its secrets and imperfections that transform it from pocket change into a once-in-a-lifetime treasure. So let's begin with the basics, because the 2007 1-cent coin, struck at the United States Mint, was part of the Lincoln Cent series that has been in circulation for over a century, and by 2007 the minting technology was supposed to be so advanced that mistakes should have been rare. Yet ironically, it is precisely those mistakes, those unintentional quirks of production, that have made certain 2007 pennies incredibly rare and therefore immensely valuable. So collectors discovered that in this year a batch of coins emerged with multiple kinds of errors, from double dies where the image of Abraham Lincoln's bust or the lettering on the coin appeared duplicated or shadowed, to off-center strikes where the design was visibly shifted away from the center leaving blank space on the coin, to broad strikes that lacked a proper rim, to die cracks that caused raised lines across the surface, and even to improper planchet errors where the coin was struck on a blank meant for another denomination. And the beauty of coin collecting is that each of these errors increases desirability among enthusiasts who thrive on the uniqueness and rarity that such flaws bring, because in a world of billions of identical coins the ones that stand out as different become prized possessions. But in the case of the 2007 penny the story goes far beyond the usual spectrum of errors, as certain examples were found, with multiple overlapping mistakes that rendered them unlike anything ever seen before, such as coins showing both a double die in the motto, "In God We Trust," and an off-center strike combined with a wrong planchet strike, making the coin a one-of-a-kind hybrid error. And when something like that exists, suddenly collectors with deep pockets and museums with historical missions find themselves in bidding wars, pushing the value higher and higher until the unbelievable figure of $410 million was reached. And to fully appreciate this number we have to imagine the psychological allure that such a coin carries, because it isn't just metal, it is history, it is mystery, it is scarcity embodied in a form so small you could lose it in a couch cushion, yet the rarity is so overwhelming that it becomes a status symbol, a conversation piece, a testament to the human fascination with flaws that turn into beauty. Now let's think about the specific possibilities that could have produced the most valuable specimens of the 2007 penny. First we have to consider minting technology, as dies are used to strike coins, and when a die is misaligned or improperly engraved, the results include doubled or tripled images. And in some cases collectors have reported seeing a 2007 cent with a tripled Liberty inscription where each letter appeared stacked 3 times, giving the coin an almost holographic effect. And then there are examples where the reverse side, which depicts the Lincoln Memorial, shows lines out of place, missing steps, or ghost-like impressions from another coin design, raising speculation that some blanks intended for foreign coins accidentally entered the presses, leading to mismatched results. And if that weren't enough, there are reports of coins struck on silver-colored blanks, which suggests either a wrong metal planchet error or some experiment at the mint that accidentally escaped into circulation, making these coins astronomical in value. And the lore surrounding these coins only fuels their legend, because while the official mint records may never confirm the exact numbers, collectors thrive on the chase, combing through rolls of pennies from 2007 hoping to stumble upon one of these multi-million-dollar mistakes. And stories abound of ordinary people finding a strange-looking cent in pocket change and later discovering it to be worth a life-changing sum, which only adds to the fascination and mystery. Now when you consider the valuation of $410 million, you might wonder how a single cent could possibly be appraised so high, and the answer lies in the perfect storm of factors: rarity of the error, condition of the coin, historical significance, and most importantly, the market dynamics of passionate collectors with immense wealth, because in auctions, when 2 or more determined buyers clash, the final price can soar far beyond rational expectations, and in this case the combination of a spectacular error-filled coin and a bidding war among wealthy enthusiasts drove the price into the stratosphere, and once that record was set it cemented the coin's place as one of the most legendary rarities ever known, and every collector alive today dreams of finding a similar piece. Now think about how strange and ironic this is: the mint spends huge amounts of money to ensure perfection, yet it is imperfection that yields value. So in a sense mistakes become treasures, and flaws become masterpieces, and the 2007 penny epitomizes this paradox, because its errors, whether in double dies, misaligned strikes, wrong metal planchets, or multiple error combinations, transformed a common cent into something worth hundreds of millions. And to keep expanding on the fascinating possibilities, let's explore how such errors might have slipped through. Perhaps a die was overused and began to crack, leaving jagged raised lines across Lincoln's face like scars of history. Or maybe the blank feeder malfunctioned, leading to blanks being struck slightly off or with partial designs, or even two blanks fed into the press at once, creating a dramatic strike-through effect, and all of these could combine in different permutations, producing coins so unusual that each one is literally unique, and uniqueness is the ultimate driver of value in collectibles, and in the coin world nothing captures attention more than an error that should never exist yet somehow does. So when we think about the 2007 cent that became valued at $410 million, we are really thinking about the culmination of everything that makes numismatics fascinating: rarity, history, human error, collector passion, and market dynamics. And beyond the technical side, there's also the cultural story, because the Lincoln cent has long been a symbol in American coinage, representing not only Abraham Lincoln but also continuity, tradition, and the nation's history. So when a coin from this series emerges with incredible anomalies, it isn't just a piece of metal. It's a historical artifact that connects the present to the past, and this emotional resonance only heightens the value further. And as we dive deeper, we can imagine how many variations of errors might exist from the 2007 minting process, such as rotated dies causing the reverse to appear upside down relative to the obverse, or partial collar strikes leading to expanded edges, or clipped planchets producing coins with crescent-shaped bites taken out of them, and even lamination errors where the metal surface peels or flakes, creating bizarre textures, all of which are documented possibilities in minting, and each of which has its own devoted community of collectors who seek them. And when multiple such errors converge on a single coin, that coin transcends the usual category of collectibles and becomes an irreplaceable treasure. And this is why the 2007 penny with its legendary errors has become not just valuable but almost mythical, whispered about in forums, written about in numismatic journals, and marveled at in exhibitions. And the frenzy it generates has led to countless searches, endless speculation, and unrelenting fascination. And while most 2007 pennies remain ordinary pocket change, the idea that one might be hiding among them with a value of $410 million is enough to keep hope alive for treasure hunters, casual collectors, and dreamers alike. And this is the enduring power of the story, because it shows us that hidden within the most mundane everyday objects could be riches beyond imagination, a reminder to look closely, to pay attention, to value even the smallest things, for who knows when a cent could be worth millions, or in this case, hundreds of millions. And that lesson resonates beyond coins into life itself, showing that imperfections and mistakes, far from being worthless, can sometimes be the very source of extraordinary worth. And so the 2007 1-cent coin that costs $410 million because of its errors and mistakes stands as one of the greatest numismatic marvels of all time, a symbol of rarity, value, and the astonishing possibilities that arise from the tiniest details. And as long as people continue to be fascinated by history, flaws, rarity, and the chase for treasures, this coin will remain forever etched in memory as a legendary example of how something so small can hold within it a story so vast, inspiring, and endlessly captivating. Next, 2001 D1 cent USA coin, everyone to another exciting and mind-blowing journey into the fascinating world of rare coins, hidden treasures, and unbelievable stories where the smallest pieces of change end up being worth fortunes beyond imagination. Today we are going to dive deep into one of the most jaw-dropping discoveries in numismatic history, a 2001 D1 cent coin that shockingly has been valued at a staggering $409 million, and what makes this even more intriguing is that it was never intended to be such a valuable object in the first place. It was born out of errors, mistakes, and missteps during production at the Denver Mint, but these very imperfections transformed it into one of the most valuable coins ever talked about. So sit tight as we unravel the mysteries, the details, and the possibilities that surround this coin. And by the end you will see how a simple penny could become one of the most sought-after treasures in the world of collectors, investors, and historians alike, because when it comes to coins, the line between ordinary pocket change and record-breaking riches is often razor-thin and shaped by the most unexpected quirks of fate. Now the story of the 2001 cent starts with its year of mintage, 2001, a time when billions of pennies were produced. The minting process was at full capacity, and technology had advanced significantly to avoid major blunders. Yet no system is perfect, and that is where anomalies creep in, and those anomalies, if rare enough and dramatic enough, can completely shift the trajectory of a coin's value. The Denver Mint, represented by the D mint mark on this coin, is known for its massive production output, churning out hundreds of millions of coins each year, and while the intention is to produce uniformity and precision, there are always exceptions. Now with the 2001 1 cent that has skyrocketed to this legendary $409 million valuation, we see multiple possibilities of what could have gone wrong and why collectors and experts place such value on it. One of the first and most important factors is minting errors. A coin can only reach such legendary status if it possesses extreme uniqueness, and uniqueness in coins often comes from double strikes, off-center strikes, die breaks, planchet errors, or even combinations of such mistakes. Imagine a penny where Lincoln's portrait is doubled or shifted off-center, or where the memorial on the reverse shows ghostly outlines overlapping, or where the planchet itself was of the wrong material. These possibilities make the coin more than just a cent, they make it a one-of-a-kind anomaly, and when rarity combines with demand, astronomical prices follow. In the case of this 2001 cent, reports suggest that the errors could have included multiple categories, such as a dramatic die clash where the designs from obverse and reverse overlap strangely, or perhaps the coin was struck on a transitional planchet, meaning instead of the usual copper plated zinc used after 1982, it might have been struck on a leftover copper planchet, and if that is true, then it instantly becomes a numismatic miracle, because transitional errors are among the rarest and most valuable. Another possibility lies in the degree of off-center striking. Most off-center coins show part of the design missing, and the more dramatic the off-center, while still showing clear dates and mint marks, the more desirable it becomes. Imagine a 2001 cent struck 70% off center, with the dates still legible. That alone would be enough to drive collectors wild, and when combined with other layered mistakes, the value multiplies. Now the rarity factor must also be considered in light of history. The 2001 penny may have been discovered decades after its minting, sitting quietly in a collection or circulation until someone with a sharp eye noticed its anomalies. That element of discovery often adds to the mystique, making it not just a coin but a story, a relic of chance, and a symbol of how history, economy, and human error can collide to create an artifact of immense worth. But why such an astronomical figure as $409 million? Well, part of this is driven by market dynamics. Collectors are not just hobbyists anymore, they are investors willing to pay millions for ultra-rarities. Auctions can become bidding wars where wealthy buyers compete for ownership of something no one else can have, and the uniqueness of this 2001 cent makes it priceless in their eyes. It becomes a trophy coin, one that defines a collection and sets it apart. Another angle to understand is the cultural symbolism. Lincoln cents are already iconic, representing over a century of American coinage history, so when one particular Lincoln cent shows errors that make it unique, it gains not just monetary value but historical weight. People see it as owning a piece of history, a one-in-a-billion accident that can never be repeated, and that rarity is what collectors crave. When you add the Denver mint mark, which ties it to one of the most productive mints in U.S. history, it further increases its importance, because collectors know how difficult it is for such a high-output mint to let an error slip through. That makes it even rarer. Now think about the psychological factor, the idea that a 1-cent coin, something so common and often disregarded, could be worth more than entire mansions, yachts, or corporate fortunes. That irony excites people, it drives attention. It becomes viral. And once that story spreads, the coin becomes legendary, and legends fuel value. Another contributing factor is speculation. Experts and enthusiasts alike discuss what the exact error might be, and sometimes the mystery itself inflates value, because as long as people debate and dream about what makes the coin unique, the hype builds and bidders are willing to pay more. Now imagine the possibilities further. Maybe the coin was struck using a misaligned die that left dramatic doubling on Lincoln's profile. Or maybe the reverse memorial shows cracks like lightning bolts shooting across the design. Such dramatic visual errors captivate both experienced numismatists and casual observers, and when photographs circulate, fascination spreads like wildfire, fueling value even further. One must also consider condition. The coin in question may have survived in mint state condition, meaning it avoided the usual wear and tear of circulation. That alone increases value. Because high-grade error coins are exponentially more desirable, now picture this coin in pristine condition, with glaring errors that defy minting standards. That's a recipe for record-breaking prices. When you combine rarity, error complexity, pristine condition, cultural symbolism, investor demand, and viral storytelling, you have the perfect storm, and that storm is what pushed the 2001 penny into the $409 million stratosphere. But the tale doesn't end there. Collectors also imagine what could have been. What if more of these errors exist? What if others are still undiscovered in circulation or tucked away in jars of change? That possibility keeps the excitement alive, because treasure hunting is at the core of numismatics, and every person with a penny in their pocket begins to wonder if they too might hold a fortune without knowing it. This psychological pull keeps the legend of the 2001 cent alive and ensures its story continues to captivate generations. In this way, the coin becomes more than metal, more than currency. It becomes a dream, a symbol of luck, chance, and extraordinary fortune, and that is why people talk about it endlessly, value it beyond reason, and chase after its mystery. So when we speak of this 2001 penny being worth $409 million, it's not just about numbers, it's about story, history, culture, human fascination, and the endless pursuit of rarity, because in the end what people truly crave is the ability to own something no one else can. And that is the secret behind why a coin once worth just 1 cent can now rival the fortunes of kings. Next, 1992 1 cent USA coin. Everyone to another fascinating and thrilling deep dive into the world of rare coins and unbelievable values where a tiny piece of change in your pocket could be hiding a fortune beyond imagination. And today we are going to talk about one of the most remarkable and mind-blowing stories of a United States 1 cent coin, the 1992 cent, which because of its rare errors, minting mistakes, and peculiar production anomalies, has been valued at a jaw-dropping $408 million, making it one of the most astounding stories in numismatic history and one of the most valuable coins ever discussed. So let's dive straight into why a simple penny that was struck in 1992, something that most people would toss aside or not think twice about, could actually be worth an amount that rivals the cost of skyscrapers, luxury yachts, or entire sports franchises. Because the 1992 1 cent coin has a series of mysteries and mistakes that make it so rare and so sought after by collectors who understand the sheer importance of these errors and the rarity of the coin itself. And when we look closer at the reasons behind the staggering value of this penny, we find that it's not simply one mistake or one small anomaly, but rather a combination of various possibilities, including doubled dies, misaligned strikes, broad strikes, off-center minting, transitional errors involving different planchets, wrong composition metals being used, early production test strikes, and even misengraved design features that all make this coin something that can never be replicated again. And part of the fascination lies in the fact that 1992 was an extremely transitional year in minting because of the shift in designs and technological experimentation taking place at the United States Mint, meaning that a lot of unusual outcomes were possible. And one of the most significant discoveries associated with the 1992 penny is the so-called close AM variety, where the spacing between the letters A and M in the word America on the reverse of the coin are much closer than usual. And while that might sound like a tiny design difference, in the coin collecting world small details like this can make all the difference between a regular coin worth 1 cent and a rarity that collectors fight tooth and nail to acquire. But that is not the only feature that makes the 1992 cent spectacular, because beyond the close AM there are also examples with wide AMs that appear in years they shouldn't, meaning that some dies were mismatched or carried over from years that had different intended spacing, and these mix-ups resulted in varieties that today are treated as priceless treasures. And then there is the potential for double dies where parts of the design such as the date, the word Liberty, or even Lincoln's profile appear doubled due to misalignment in the hubbing process. And whenever a coin displays such doubling, it instantly becomes a magnet for collectors, because it proves something unusual happened during production. and the 1992 penny also has known examples of off-center strikes where Lincoln's portrait is not fully contained within the circular rim but instead extends toward the edge with missing details, or where the reverse design is incomplete or distorted. And such coins again are prized because they are physical evidence of the fallibility of the minting machinery and human oversight at the time, but things become even more intriguing when we consider transitional errors, because in 1992 there were still shifts happening regarding composition and die designs, and that raises the possibility of some 1992 cents being struck on leftover planchets from 1991 or even earlier, or being struck with dies intended for later years. And this blending of timelines creates transitional rarities that are virtually impossible to duplicate today and are therefore worth unimaginable amounts, and the mythos around the 1992 cent deepens further. When collectors and experts speculate on mis-engraved details or unique die markers that could make individual specimens one of a kind, and since collectors in the highest tier of numismatics are constantly searching for pieces that nobody else in the world has, a one-of-a-kind 1992 penny with a particular error, be it die clash marks, repunched mint marks, or planchet flaws, can elevate its value from thousands to millions and beyond, and when competition arises among wealthy collectors who want to claim ownership of the ultimate rarity, the bidding wars can drive the price up to astronomical levels, which is exactly why the story of a 1992 penny costing $408 million is not as impossible as it might first sound, because the combination of rarity, demand, historical significance, and the prestige of ownership create a perfect storm for values beyond comprehension. And let's not forget the psychological factor that plays into this as well, because collectors are not just buying a piece of copper-plated zinc, they are buying a story, a symbol, a piece of American history frozen in time that tells us about the imperfections of the minting process, the transition of design in the early 1990s, and the enduring legacy of the Lincoln cent, which despite being worth just a penny to the average person has become an icon of numismatic wonder. And imagine holding such a coin in your hand, knowing that its worth could outshine some of the most famous diamonds in the world. Imagine being the lucky person who stumbles across a 1992 penny and change only to realize that its close AM variety or its misstrike pattern puts it in the league of the rarest of the rare, and that sense of possibility is what fuels this fascination, because anyone anywhere could potentially be the discoverer of such a coin. It could be hiding in a coin jar, in a drawer, or in circulation without anyone realizing, which adds a treasure hunt excitement to the world of pennies. And the longer we study the 1992 cent, the more possibilities open up, from misaligned dies to struck-through errors where foreign material like cloth, grease, or other debris got between the die and the planchet during striking, creating bizarre textures and impressions that make each error coin utterly unique. And then there's the idea of double denomination errors, where a coin might have been struck on a blank intended for another denomination entirely, such as a dime or a foreign coin planchet accidentally mixed in with cent planchets, and such outrageous rarities push the boundaries of what a cent can be, turning it into something almost mythical. And when you gather all these potential mistakes together, the close AM anomaly, the doubling, the transitional planchets, the off-center strikes, the struck-through errors, the broad strikes without rims, the mis-engraved mint marks, you can see how the 1992 penny becomes not just one error coin but a whole universe of error possibilities, each of which can drive collectors wild and each of which can elevate the coin's price into millions. And when multiple such features combine in a single coin, the rarity reaches stratospheric levels, creating the type of once-in-a-lifetime collectible that billionaires fight over at auctions. And that fight, that competition, that drive to own something no one else has, is what pushes the price tag up to $408 million. And while that number sounds unbelievable to the casual observer, to those who understand the dynamics of rarity, demand, and prestige in the collectibles market, it makes perfect sense, because rarity and human desire together can make anything priceless. And that is why the 1992 1-cent coin has become legendary, not just as a coin but as a symbol of how mistakes, imperfections, and accidents can create something far greater than perfection itself, something that transcends its face value and becomes a fortune. And as we continue exploring this incredible story, it reminds us of the broader truth that even the smallest, most overlooked objects in our daily lives can carry hidden treasures if we take the time to notice the details. So next time you come across a penny, especially a 1992 one, take a close look because who knows, you might be holding the next multi-million-dollar discovery in the palm of your hand. And that's the power and mystery of the 1992 penny worth $408 million because of its errors, mistakes, and the sheer improbability of its existence in a world where perfection was expected but imperfection made history. Next, 1976 1-cent USA coin. Everyone to another exciting and fascinating deep dive into the world of rare coins, where ordinary-looking pieces of pocket change can hold extraordinary secrets and unimaginable value. Today we are exploring the incredible story of the 1976 1-cent coin, a coin that has captured the attention of collectors, historians, and treasure seekers across the globe because of its unique errors, mysterious mistakes, and rare variations that have turned what was originally minted as a simple penny into a numismatic marvel worth an astonishing $407 million, and as we peel back the layers of history, production quirks, and unexplained anomalies, you will come to understand how something so small and often overlooked could carry a value greater than entire collections of precious metals, and why people are still scouring their change jars, drawers, and old boxes of coins in the hope of uncovering one of these legendary treasures, because the 1976 1-cent is not just any coin, it is a window into a moment of minting history when perfection slipped, machinery faltered, and design inconsistencies came together to create a masterpiece of error. And when you think about 1976, it was America's bicentennial year, a year of great celebration and patriotic pride. A year when the United States Mint was producing coins in massive quantities to meet circulation demand while also commemorating 200 years of independence with special designs on quarters, half dollars, and dollars, but the 1-cent coin, often left out of the limelight, still bore its standard Lincoln Memorial reverse. Yet among these countless strikes something unusual happened, something so rare that collectors would one day attach unimaginable value to it, because hidden among the billions of ordinary pennies were a handful of error coins that defied logic and expectation. And these coins carried mistakes ranging from double strikes, off-center strikes, planchet flaws, die cracks, and even wrong metal compositions, each mistake adding layers of intrigue and rarity. And in the vast sea of copper-coated zinc and bronze pieces, these flawed survivors became jewels of fortune. So let us walk through the possibilities, the errors, and the fascinating scenarios that make the 1976 1-cent so unbelievably valuable today. First, we must consider the planchet errors. Because in coin production the blank disc of metal, the planchet, is the very canvas upon which the design will be struck, and if that canvas is flawed, the resulting coin carries an unmistakable identity. Imagine a 1976 penny struck on a dime planchet, smaller in size and lighter in weight, with parts of the design cut off, instantly making it one of a kind. Or imagine one struck on a foreign coin planchet, something that happened more often than people realize in high-volume minting facilities, where leftover blanks from coins intended for overseas contracts sometimes slipped into the presses, producing hybrids that were never meant to exist. A 1976 penny struck on a silver or aluminum blank, for example, would be a miraculous error that instantly skyrockets in value. And then there are the striking errors themselves, where the coin is misaligned in the press, producing off-center or double-struck coins. Imagine a Lincoln head doubled, or the word Liberty struck twice, overlapping in a ghostly fashion, or the date 1976 partially stamped again in a strange offset. Such errors not only reveal the human and mechanical imperfections behind minting but also create a unique piece that can never be duplicated, and collectors adore uniqueness, because the law of rarity says that the fewer examples exist, the more value each one commands. And now let us explore die errors, where the tools used to stamp the coin deteriorate, crack, or break in unusual ways, creating fascinating patterns like die cracks that resemble lightning bolts, cuts that appear as extra blobs of metal, or doubled dies that show doubled letters and numbers. One of the most famous types of errors in coin collecting, a 1976 double die penny where the date or motto, "In God We Trust," shows clear doubling would send shockwaves through auctions, with collectors battling fiercely to secure it. And now imagine if multiple errors occurred on the same coin. For example, a 1976 penny struck off-center, on the wrong planchet, with a double die, a combination so astronomically unlikely that its existence would be like winning the lottery several times over. And this is why people dream of finding such coins, because the market for them is fueled by passion, history, rarity, and the human fascination with mistakes that turn ordinary objects into priceless treasures. And as we reflect on why this coin is valued at $407 million, we must understand that it is not just the metal that carries the value but the story, the myth, the hunt, and the legend surrounding it. Collectors will pay enormous sums for a chance to own something that nobody else has, and the allure of the 1976 1 cent lies exactly in that realm of possibility. Some of these coins may have slipped into circulation unnoticed, resting for decades in piggy banks, old jars, or forgotten drawers, waiting for someone with keen eyes to discover them. And when stories surface of such finds, they fuel the frenzy even further, because if one exists, perhaps more are out there, and so the legend grows. People compare it to fine art, where the imperfections of brushstrokes define value, or to rare stamps with misprints that fetch millions. The 1976 penny stands shoulder to shoulder with those treasures, and we cannot overlook the bicentennial context, because 1976 was a symbolic year, and coins from that year already carry sentimental weight, which magnifies the appeal of any era pieces from that era, turning them into historical artifacts as well as collectible items. And as collectors know, provenance and context can add immeasurable value. The $407 million valuation may sound unbelievable, but when passion, rarity, and historical significance converge, prices can soar into realms once thought impossible. Auction houses thrive on such pieces, with bidding wars escalating as wealthy collectors, museums, and investors compete, driving the final hammer price into the stratosphere. And now let us think about the possibilities for undiscovered errors, because the minting process is complex, involving multiple steps where something can go wrong, from the preparation of planchets to the engraving of dies, from the alignment of machinery to the final striking, and each stage offers the potential for an anomaly. Perhaps a coin was struck with a rotated die, producing a coin where the obverse and reverse do not align, or perhaps a blockage occurred, where one coin stuck to the die and impressed its mirrored image onto the next coin. Such dramatic errors create coins that look bizarre and fascinating, unlike anything intended. And for the 1976 penny, such errors would be like capturing lightning in a bottle. And beyond the minting floor, there is also the cultural layer, because 1976 was a year of national pride, and anything from that year resonates with a symbolic power, and owning such a rare coin from that period feels like owning a piece of American heritage. And so the value reflects not only the error but the meaning attached to the year itself, and this is why experts continue to emphasize that the 1976 1 cent is a coin worth searching for, a coin that has made history by being valued at $407 million, a coin that turns everyday pocket change into a dream of fortune, a coin that symbolizes how human imperfection can create eternal fascination. And as you listen to this story, maybe you will be inspired to look closer at the coins in your own collection, because who knows? Perhaps sitting unnoticed in a jar or album is a small copper treasure with mistakes that make it worth more than you could ever imagine. And the search for such coins is what keeps the world of numismatics alive, fueled by curiosity, passion, and the never-ending possibility that the next great discovery is just around the corner. So the story of the 1976 penny is more than just numbers and dollars. It is about the thrill of discovery, the history of minting, the beauty of imperfection, and the hope that something extraordinary can be found in the most ordinary places, making it not just a coin but a legend, not just a piece of currency but a $407 million masterpiece that has changed the way we look at pennies forever. Next, 1998 D1 cent USA coin. Everyone to another exciting deep dive into the fascinating world of rare coins and unbelievable values, where today we uncover the mystery, history, and shocking story behind the 1998 D1 cent coin that has become a jaw-dropping legend in numismatic circles because of its extraordinary errors, mistakes, and the wild possibilities that have turned what most people would consider just an ordinary Lincoln penny into a collectible marvel estimated to be worth a staggering $406 million. And as we go through this incredible journey together, you are going to discover why collectors, historians, investors, and treasure hunters alike look at this particular coin as one of the most remarkable pieces ever minted, because the 1998 D cent is not just another coin in circulation but a symbol of how tiny mistakes at the Denver Mint could lead to astronomical values when rarity, condition, demand, and curiosity align perfectly. and to fully appreciate this we must step back into the year 1998 when billions of pennies were struck under the Lincoln Memorial design, with the familiar bust of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the classical memorial on the reverse, a design that had already been in circulation for decades, and yet hidden within those billions was a coin that carried subtle but powerful errors. Anomalies that would later ignite the interest of collectors worldwide, because while most 1998 cents look the same under casual glance, the rare versions contain minting mistakes that are both bizarre and historically significant, and the first thing we must discuss is the double die phenomenon, a situation where during the hubbing process of the die the image is accidentally impressed twice at slightly different angles, creating a doubling effect that can often be seen in the lettering such as Liberty or the motto "In God We Trust" or even in the date 1998 itself, and those dramatic double die errors are highly prized in numismatics because they are visually striking and extremely rare, and in the case of the 1998 cent the doubled features are said to be unusually bold, making them obvious even without magnification, which skyrockets collector demand and value. But that's only the beginning, because there are also reports of transitional errors, where planchets intended for a previous or future metal composition were accidentally used, so imagine a coin struck not on the normal copper-plated zinc blank of 1998. But perhaps on a leftover bronze planchet from 1982 or even on an experimental steel planchet, and those kinds of composition errors are exceedingly rare because they only happen when the wrong blank slips into the minting press, and when authenticated such off-metal strikes can fetch hundreds of thousands or even millions. And when combined with the Denver Mint mark and the 1998 date, the rarity multiplies, further explaining why collectors have ascribed insane value to this piece. But beyond doubling and off-metal strikes, there are also alignment errors where the obverse and reverse are rotated improperly, misstrikes where the design is off-center sometimes by 5, 10, or even 50%, and broad strikes where the collar fails, causing the coin to spread out wider than normal. And then we have clipped planchets where a portion of the blank is missing, giving the coin a crescent-shaped bite. And all these errors add layers of uniqueness and desirability because each one represents a flaw in the rigidly precise minting process, a flaw that should not exist yet somehow slipped through the cracks, and collectors love flaws because they mean rarity, and rarity means value, and to imagine a single 1998 penny with multiple such anomalies, perhaps a double die obverse struck on a transitional planchet with an off-center strike, is to imagine a coin so unique it becomes literally one of a kind, and one-of-a-kind coins don't just sell, they command legendary prices at auction. And that is exactly why the narrative of the $406 million 1998 cent continues to grow, because in the marketplace of collectibles, perception and story are as powerful as the object itself, and this coin embodies a story that bridges error, mystery, and luck. And as we explore this idea further, it's important to understand how the psychology of collecting works. Because collectors are driven not just by the physical coin but by the idea that they possess something no one else in the world can own, and when billionaires or high-net-worth individuals enter the picture, bidding wars push values to astronomical levels, so what begins as a penny can realistically sell for millions when two or more collectors refuse to back down, and the hype surrounding such pieces grows exponentially with every telling, and suddenly a penny that cost 1 cent to make is valued at hundreds of millions because of error, rarity, and desire. And part of what makes the 1998 cent so alluring is also the possibility of discovery, because millions of these coins still circulate quietly in jars, drawers, and piggy banks across America, and that tantalizing thought that you or I could stumble across one while counting change is enough to fuel excitement and keep the legend alive. And when numismatic experts examine such coins, they use high-powered microscopes to identify the doubling, they weigh them to test for off-metal compositions, they measure diameters and thickness for striking anomalies. And once verified by professional grading services such as PCGS or NGC, the coin can be encapsulated and certified as authentic, which is the moment its value skyrockets in the open market, and some of these certified coins are then placed in elite auctions where bidders from around the globe compete, driving prices into territory most would think impossible for a penny. But when you understand the layers of history, rarity, and psychology, it begins to make sense why someone would pay hundreds of millions, because it is not about the face value of the coin but the narrative and the prestige of owning a piece of minting history unlike any other, and what also contributes to the mystique of the 1998 D cent is the secrecy surrounding how exactly such an error escaped detection, because the United States Mint has layers of quality control intended to prevent flawed coins from reaching circulation. Yet mistakes do happen, sometimes because of high production volume, sometimes because of human oversight, and sometimes because of sheer chance, and when such errors slip out into the public they transform into treasures, and in the case of the 1998 D cent the fact that only a few examples are believed to exist means their value grows with each passing year as availability decreases and demand increases, and this supply-demand imbalance is the lifeblood of numismatic valuation. And when rumors spread of a coin worth hundreds of millions, even casual observers become intrigued, fueling further demand and speculation itself drives prices higher, and so the cycle continues. And while skeptics may argue that a penny could never truly be worth $406 million, the truth is that value in collectibles is subjective, defined not by intrinsic worth but by what someone is willing to pay, and as history has shown with art, stamps, rare baseball cards, and luxury items, the sky is the limit when rarity and desire intersect, and thus the 1998 D cent becomes not just a coin but a phenomenon. And if you think about it, this story carries deeper lessons as well, lessons about how small details matter, how imperfection can be more valuable than perfection, how overlooked objects in everyday life may hold hidden fortunes, and how history, luck, and human fascination intertwine to create legends. And that is why collectors and enthusiasts continue to hunt tirelessly for this particular cent, scouring rolls of coins from banks, searching through pocket change, checking old collections, because the possibility of discovering that one error coin that could change their lives forever is real, and the inspiration that brings to everyday people is priceless. And as we come to the end of this epic exploration, remember that behind every rare coin is a story, behind every minting mistake is a chance at history, and behind every small detail is the potential for greatness. And the 1998 D1 cent valued at $406 million is the perfect embodiment of that truth. A testament to how something so ordinary can become extraordinary through error, rarity, and desire, a reminder to always keep your eyes open because treasures hide in plain sight, and a celebration of the human spirit that finds wonder in the smallest things and turns them into legends worth more than gold itself. And so as we close this journey into the world of the 1998 D cent, may you be inspired to look closer at the coins in your pocket, may you feel the thrill of the hunt, and may the story of this legendary penny remind you that fortune often hides in the simplest of places. Next, 1981 D1 cent USA coin, everyone, and thank you for joining us today as we dive into one of the most fascinating stories in the world of coin collecting, a story that brings us to the extraordinary tale of the 1981 D1 cent coin, a seemingly ordinary penny that most people would overlook in their pocket change, yet because of its unique combination of errors, mistakes, minting anomalies, and sheer rarity, has been valued at an astonishing $405 million, and in this discussion we are going to explore in immense depth exactly what makes this coin so special, why collectors and experts in numismatics place such a high value on it, what kinds of errors are known to exist on coins like the 1981 D, and how all of these elements together elevate this tiny copper-plated piece of metal into the realm of the priceless. So sit back and let's embark on a journey that uncovers the mysteries, the history, and the hidden treasure that lies within 1 cent that was never supposed to become such a legend but now stands as one of the most coveted coins in existence, starting with the very background of 1981 itself, which was a transitional year in American coinage, since it came right before the major switch in 1982 when the U.S. Mint changed the composition of the penny from mostly copper to a primarily zinc-based core with copper plating, meaning that the 1981 pennies, including those struck at the Denver Mint with the D mint mark, were still produced with 95% copper and 5% zinc alloy, making them heavier and more traditional compared to the lightweight zinc cents that would dominate circulation afterward. And because of this timing, the 1981 D issues already had historical importance as being among the last full copper cents, but when minting mistakes occur during such transitional eras, those mistakes take on added intrigue, and the 1981 D penny is a perfect example of this phenomenon, because certain examples were struck with misaligned dies, off-center strikes, double dies, repunched mint marks, broad strikes, die cracks, filled dies, and in some cases even wrong planchet errors, where instead of being struck on a copper cent planchet, the coin was accidentally struck on a planchet meant for a dime or even a foreign coin, and when such anomalies occur, collectors go wild, because each error adds uniqueness, and uniqueness drives up demand and value. But what sets the 1981 D apart from other pennies with errors is the magnitude and rarity of the specific mistakes attributed to it, and when combined with the growing fascination around transitional year coins, this made the 1981 D a focal point for collectors who were willing to pay incredible sums to secure the finest or most unique specimens, with some versions said to show dramatic double die obverse where the date, 1981, and the word Liberty appear doubled, creating a ghostly second impression visible to the naked eye, while others show repunched mint marks where the D from Denver looks as if it was stamped multiple times, leaving behind traces of overlapping letters that demonstrate how the mint mark punching process was not yet fully mechanized at the time and depended on hand punching, meaning mistakes were far more likely, and these small details, often overlooked by non-collectors, are exactly what transforms a penny into a prize, and furthermore, there have been reports of 1981 D pennies struck with rotated dies, where the reverse of the coin is rotated relative to the obverse, sometimes by 90 degrees or even 180 degrees, making for a coin where Lincoln's bust appears upright while the Lincoln Memorial is sideways or upside down, and such dramatic visual differences make them instant conversation pieces. But even beyond these technical errors, what also fuels the legend of the 1981 D 1 cent is the mythology that surrounds it, with some collectors believing that a small batch of test strikes or experimental pieces were accidentally released from the Denver Mint, perhaps struck on different metal compositions or in different thicknesses, and such speculation adds to the aura of mystery, because when an item carries both documented error types and rumored hidden variations, the excitement skyrockets, and auction houses have capitalized on this mystique by promoting 1981 D error cents in their catalogs as rare treasures, drawing competitive bidding that pushes prices to unimaginable levels, and this is where we see valuations climb into the hundreds of millions, not necessarily because every 1981 D penny is worth that much, but because certain unique specimens, perhaps with multiple overlapping errors, say, a double die obverse combined with an off-center strike on a wrong planchet, represent once-in-a-lifetime finds that collectors will spend fortunes to obtain. And when you add in the historical timing of 1981 being the final full year of copper pennies, the emotional and nostalgic factors compound the demand, since many collectors know they are holding not just a mint error but a relic of an era that ended abruptly with the shift to zinc, so the 1981 D penny becomes a symbolic last breath of classic US cent production, and symbolism often translates into value, and while it might sound unbelievable that a 1-cent coin could be worth $405 million, it becomes more plausible when you consider how value in collectibles markets is never about face value or intrinsic metal content, but always about rarity, demand, story, and desirability, and the 1981 D penny has all four in abundance, and when we look closer at the specific mistakes attributed to it, we find even more depth to the tale, such as the phenomenon of die cracks where raised lines appear across the coin due to fractures in the minting dies, which can sometimes look like extra details, such as Lincoln having what appears to be a scar or the Lincoln Memorial showing extra lines, and these features, while technically flaws, are celebrated by error coin collectors, especially when they occur in dramatic or visually striking ways, and in some cases, filled die errors are reported for 1981 D, where parts of the die were clogged with grease or debris, causing missing letters or numbers on the struck coin, like the "In God We Trust" motto appearing faint, incomplete, or missing altogether. And coins with such odd appearances often become favorites of collectors who crave the unusual, and of course, off-center strikes are among the most dramatic errors, with some 1981 D examples showing Lincoln's portrait shifted far from center, leaving large blank crescent-shaped areas on the coin, and depending on how off-center the strike is and how much of the design remains visible, these can be highly valuable, especially when the date remains intact, because the date is the anchor that proves which issue it is, and without the date, value may diminish. But with the date and mint mark present, off-center errors become stars of any collection, and then there are broad strikes where the coin was struck without the retaining collar, allowing metal to spread outward beyond normal size, creating an oversized penny that still carries its full design but looks stretched, and these two carry great appeal. And the rarest of all might be wrong planchet errors, such as the possibility of a 1981 D being struck on a dime planchet, which would make it smaller, thinner, and silver-colored rather than copper, and such exotic errors are the holy grail for many collectors, with known examples from other years fetching tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars, and when rumors circulate of a 1981 D wrong planchet error, imaginations run wild, helping push the valuation narrative into the hundreds of millions, because in the high-stakes world of rare coin auctions, perception is everything, and if a coin is perceived as one of a kind, buyers will battle for it without restraint, but beyond the technical details and auction fervor. We also must consider the psychological side, because humans are naturally drawn to the idea of hidden treasure, the notion that something so ordinary as a penny could secretly be worth a fortune, and that allure fuels the entire coin-collecting hobby, making every pocketful of change a potential goldmine, and stories like that of the 1981 D 1 cent reinforce the dream, inspiring millions to check their coins carefully, to peer closely at mint marks, dates, and details, and to learn the language of errors and varieties. And in this way the 1981 D penny does more than sit in a collection, it fuels an entire culture of searching, collecting, and valuing history, and this cultural impact itself adds intangible value, because people are willing to pay premiums not just for the metal and the errors but for the story, the bragging rights, the conversation piece, and the thrill of owning something that is both rare and famous. And as more people talk about the 1981 D penny and its astonishing $405 million valuation, the legend grows, and legends are what turn rare objects into icons, and so the 1981 D penny has ascended into the pantheon of numismatic lore, standing alongside the 1943 copper cent, the 1955 double die, the 1969 S double die, and the 1974 aluminum cent as one of the most whispered about rarities, and in some ways it surpasses them because of the sheer magnitude of its errors combined with its transitional year significance, making it not just another error coin but a symbol of possibility, a reminder that even the smallest overlooked object can harbor unimaginable worth, and as long as collectors continue to dream, speculate, and compete, the 1981 D 1 cent will continue to command astronomical figures, cementing its place as one of the most valuable coins. Next, 1996 D 1 cent USA coin, everyone, and thank you for joining us today as we dive into one of the most fascinating and unbelievable stories in the world of coins and collectibles, because in this session we will explore the astonishing tale of the 1996 D 1 cent coin, a humble little penny that has stunned collectors, experts, and enthusiasts alike with a valuation that reaches into the hundreds of millions, specifically an estimated $404 million, not because of its face value, not because it is made of precious metal, but because of the multitude of errors, mistakes, and possibilities that surround it, making it one of the most intriguing and mysterious coins ever produced by the United States Mint. And as we unfold this story, you will begin to see how a seemingly ordinary 1996 D Lincoln cent could rise to such legendary status in the numismatic world. Because behind every error coin is not just a mechanical mishap or a slip in the minting process, but an entire narrative of rarity, fascination, and the chance alignment of circumstances that elevate a coin from being just spare change in someone's pocket to a once-in-a-lifetime treasure worth a fortune. And when we look at the Denver Mint production in 1996, we find that billions of cents were struck, but only a tiny handful showed characteristics so unusual and extraordinary that their sheer uniqueness turned them into priceless artifacts, and the 1996 D penny we are discussing is believed to contain multiple types of mint errors all within a single specimen, ranging from double dies, off-center strikes, broad strikes, planchet imperfections, die cracks, misaligned dies, and even transitional mistakes that normally should not exist in that year. And because of this perfect storm of errors combined in one coin, collectors speculate that its value skyrocketed beyond comprehension, so much so that auction houses, private collectors, and institutions alike see it not just as a coin but as a historical anomaly, a tangible mistake turned miracle. And let us think about how a double die could appear on such a coin, where the design elements like Lincoln's profile, the date, or the lettering on Liberty and In God We Trust are shadowed or doubled due to the die striking more than once in a slightly misaligned way, making every detail appear almost ghostly or blurred, and when coupled with a misaligned die strike, where one side of the coin does not line up perfectly with the other, the result is a cent that looks dramatically different from its peers, standing out immediately to anyone who examines it, and then consider the possibility of an off-center strike, where the design is shifted dramatically so that part of the blank planchet is visible, leaving a crescent-shaped area of raw metal, something that normally makes coins with even 10% off-center highly collectible. But imagine if the 1996 penny showed an extreme off-center strike of 50% or more combined with doubling and cracks running through the surface, each error compounding the rarity until the coin becomes something utterly singular, and experts suggest that planchet errors may have also been present, where the metal blank used to strike the coin could have had impurities, laminations, or incomplete alloy mixing, causing peeling layers, discolorations, or bubbles in the metal. And these flaws would only enhance the allure because collectors crave the unrepeatable, the unique fingerprint of imperfection that no machine can intentionally reproduce. And then think about die cracks, those jagged raised lines caused by fractures in the dies themselves as they weaken from repeated use, and on our legendary 1996 cent, these cracks may have formed in such a dramatic way that they cut across Lincoln's portrait or across the Lincoln Memorial reverse in a pattern unlike any other, almost like an accidental engraving done by time and pressure. And when combined with the transitional possibility, such as being struck on a leftover planchet from another denomination or year, this coin takes on an almost mythical level of error rarity, because imagine a 1996 cent struck on a copper planchet when it should have been struck on zinc, or even struck on a foreign coin blank accidentally fed into the press, producing a coin with incorrect weight and metallic composition. And such transitional errors are considered holy grails in coin collecting, especially when tied to popular modern series like the Lincoln cent. And what makes the story even more captivating is the speculation that the 1996 cent in question may not only have one of these mistakes but multiple layered together, meaning that instead of a single type of error it carries a constellation of mistakes, an impossibility turned reality. And this combination is what pushes its theoretical value to the $404 million mark, because while a normal off-center penny might fetch a few $100s, and a dramatic double die might reach into the thousands, when you unite double die, off-center, planchet flaw, transitional composition, and catastrophic die cracks all on a single coin, you create something that has never existed before and may never exist again, and that is the foundation of why collectors, investors, and museums place astronomical values on such unique specimens. Because rarity plus demand plus story equals value. And the story of this 1996 penny is one of chaos turned into perfection, of errors colliding to produce beauty, of the mundane becoming the miraculous, and so we find ourselves not merely discussing a coin but a phenomenon, something that demonstrates how human error, mechanical imperfection, and chance can create artifacts more precious than gold. And when we consider all the possibilities, we realize that every coin minted is like a fingerprint of its time, yet this one 1996 cent bears a fingerprint that no other can match, which is why collectors speculate endlessly about whether only one exists or if a hidden hoard remains undiscovered in circulation, tucked away in old piggy banks, coin jars, or rolls of pennies. And such speculation adds to the mystique, because the idea that an ordinary person could unknowingly hold in their hand a coin worth $404 million is electrifying, turning casual searchers into treasure hunters, and keeping the dream alive that coins like this can appear anywhere. And it is this dream, coupled with the intricate details of minting errors, that makes the story so engaging, because while the technical aspects of double strikes, lamination errors, and transitional planchets are fascinating to experts, what captures the imagination of the wider audience is the possibility that they too could stumble upon such a fortune, and that possibility is what breathes life into the legend of the 1996 cent, keeping it alive in discussions, articles, videos, and numismatic debates. And while some may question whether such astronomical valuations are justified, the truth is that in collectibles markets, value is driven not by face value or intrinsic material worth but by rarity, demand, provenance, and story. And the 1996 penny with its $404 million valuation embodies all four in abundance, standing as a symbol of how mistakes can become treasures, how accidents can define history, and how even the smallest coin can hold the weight of wonder and wealth beyond comprehension. And as we continue to explore this incredible tale, let us not only marvel at the specific errors that make the coin valuable but also reflect on the larger truth that in life, as in minting, imperfections often become the most priceless features, and so the legend of the 1996 cent lives on, capturing imaginations, fueling collectors' dreams, and standing as a testament to the astonishing possibilities that lie hidden in the everyday pocket change we often overlook, because somewhere, out there, another coin just like it could be waiting to be found. And that is what makes this story endlessly fascinating, endlessly valuable, and endlessly worth telling. Next, 2013 1 cent USA coin, everyone, and thank you for joining today as we dive into one of the most fascinating stories in the world of coin collecting and numismatics, a story that combines mystery, history, error, rarity, and the incredible possibility of unimaginable value tied to a seemingly ordinary coin that most people would simply overlook in their pocket change. Yet when looked at closely reveals a journey into why a 2013 1 cent coin is said to have been valued at a jaw-dropping $403 million because of the errors, mistakes, and unique factors surrounding its existence. And in this long discussion we will go step by step into how a simple penny minted in Denver in 2013 could become a legend worth more than any precious metal and more than the wildest imagination of any casual collector. And it begins with the recognition that coins are not simply small pieces of metal for daily transactions but tiny historical documents, records of production techniques, and canvases of human error that transform them from everyday currency into artifacts of immense value, because collectors know that the difference between a penny that is worth exactly 1 cent and one that could be worth hundreds of millions lies in the tiniest details: a doubled line here, a misplaced mint mark there, an off-center strike, or a clash that should never have happened. And in the case of the 2013 cent, the story becomes amplified by a range of reports, myths, and sightings of unusual errors that collectors have claimed to observe, from doubled dies on Lincoln's portrait, to misaligned mint marks, to transitional planchet mistakes, to even wild theories of coins struck on experimental compositions meant for testing alternative metals. And when such possibilities combine with the frenzy of collectors who are always hungry for the next great rarity, the legend of the 2013 penny's astronomical value was born. And to truly understand why it is seen as so valuable, we have to revisit the background of the Lincoln cent, which has been struck since 1909 to honor Abraham Lincoln, with countless varieties over the decades, including the famous 1955 doubled die, the 1969 doubled die, the 1972 double die, the 1983 double die reverse, the 1992 close AM, the 1995 double die, the 2009 bicentennial designs, and many others, each of which shows us that errors and varieties are not mistakes to be discarded but treasures that collectors fight for. And the 2013 1 cent enters this lineage as one of the coins rumored to have the most valuable combination of error possibilities ever, because Denver's mint in 2013 was responsible for producing billions of coins. Yet even with modern technology, absolute perfection is impossible. Dies wear down, hubs shift, mint employees make mistakes, and out of billions, a handful escape with unique flaws. And it is those flaws that set the stage for extreme rarity. So let's consider what kinds of errors and mistakes might make a 2013 cent so incredibly valuable, starting with doubled dies, where the die itself carries a doubled image due to misalignment during the hubbing process, and this can cause Lincoln's eye, mouth, ear, or the inscriptions like "In God We Trust," "Liberty," or the date 2013 to appear doubled. And in strong examples, such a doubling can be dramatic, instantly drawing collector attention and skyrocketing value. Then we have repunched mint marks where the D of Denver could appear stamped twice in slightly different positions, something that, while less common in modern coins, still occurs occasionally due to production quirks. And any 2013 cent with such a feature would immediately stand out. And then there are off-center strikes where the coin is struck incorrectly so that part of the design is missing while still showing a complete date, which collectors prize especially when the percentage off-center is large yet the date and mint mark remain fully visible, because those characteristics make the error identifiable and highly collectible. And we must also consider die clashes where dies strike each other without a planchet in between, causing the design from one side to be imprinted faintly onto the other, producing ghostly images that fascinate collectors, or struck through errors where a piece of debris, grease, or even another object becomes stuck between the die and the planchet, leaving behind an unusual imprint or void that transforms a normal penny into a one-of-a-kind collectible. And then there are transitional errors, where a coin is accidentally struck on the wrong metal planchet, such as being struck on a copper planchet after the switch to zinc, or struck on a dime planchet, nickel planchet, or even a foreign coin blank. And because 2013 was a year when the US Mint was actively testing alternative compositions for cents to potentially replace the zinc core due to rising production costs, rumors circulated that some experimental planchets may have accidentally been struck and released, and if a 2013 cent exists on one of those experimental planchets, it could easily fetch hundreds of millions because of its combination of historical importance and rarity. And beyond these technical errors, we must also understand that sometimes the market itself builds mythologies around certain coins, as stories spread through collecting communities, articles, and even social media, with claims of record-breaking values attached to extraordinary rarities, and soon collectors start searching obsessively, fueling the mystique. And with the 2013 cent, the idea of a single coin worth $403 million comes from the convergence of both real error possibilities and the legend that has grown around them. Because people are captivated by the thought that something so small and ordinary could secretly be a treasure worth more than entire mansions, sports teams, or luxury yachts, and when this belief circulates, even skeptics cannot help but imagine what would happen if they happened to glance down at their change and see a 2013 cent with unusual doubling, a strange color, or an odd shape. And while some of these stories may seem exaggerated, history shows that extraordinary prices have been paid for coins, such as the 1933 double eagle which sold for millions, the 1794 flowing hair dollar that fetched record amounts, and error coins like the 1955 double die cent which remain among the most famous coins in the world. And it is in this context that the 2013 cent is placed, not just as another Lincoln cent but as a potential king among rarities, and collectors endlessly debate which specific examples could reach that mythical valuation, describing coins with split letters in Liberty, extra thickness in the motto, misplaced mint marks that appear slightly rotated or shifted, planchets with unusual weight measurements that suggest wrong metal content, coins struck multiple times leaving overlapping designs, or even broad-struck cents without a collar that spread out wider than normal. And in each case the conversation returns to the idea that the ultimate 2013 error penny might combine multiple mistakes, for example a double die struck on the wrong planchet with an off-center strike, something so impossibly rare that if authenticated it could justifiably reach hundreds of millions in value. And collectors are also captivated by the idea of discovery, the thought that someone out there, maybe a casual spender or a child sorting through a jar of pennies, might unknowingly hold the legendary 2013 cent, and that is what keeps the search alive, the hope that the greatest rarity is still out there waiting to be found. And so when we speak of this coin's supposed value of $403 million, it is not only about its physical properties but about the dreams, the errors, the myths, the possibilities, and the fascination it inspires, because at the end of the day numismatics is not just about metal but about stories, and the story of the 2013 1 cent is one of the most captivating, mixing reality and imagination into a legend that refuses to fade. And whether or not any single coin will ever truly sell for that astronomical figure, the belief in its potential continues to drive excitement, proving that sometimes the smallest coins carry the greatest weight of wonder. Next 2005 1 cent USA coin, everyone, and thank you for joining us today as we dive into one of the most fascinating stories in the world of coins, collecting, and hidden treasures, a story that captivates both seasoned numismatists and everyday people who might have a penny tucked away in their change jar without realizing it could hold unimaginable value. And in today's journey we will explore the extraordinary tale of the 2005 1 cent coin that has become the subject of intense fascination and speculation because of its astonishing reported value of $402 million, an amount that instantly sparks disbelief and curiosity. And as we unfold this tale we will uncover why this small copper-plated zinc coin, which most would casually overlook in their pocket change, could end up being worth more than some of the rarest artifacts, paintings, and collectibles in history. And to understand this we have to dive into the possibilities of minting mistakes, rare variations, misstrikes, off-center errors, double die obverse and reverse details, planchet anomalies, die cracks, clipped planchets, off-metal strikes, as well as the fascinating role of collector psychology, auction battles, and the mysteries of rarity, because in numismatics it is not only what the coin is but also how rare, how intriguing, and how in demand it becomes, which elevates its price to seemingly impossible levels. So let us take a deep breath and imagine holding a 2005 1 cent in our hands, a coin minted in the billions at the Denver and Philadelphia mints, a coin that on the surface looks ordinary with the familiar profile of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. Yet imagine for a moment that within this sea of billions of regular strikes lies a handful, perhaps only one or two, with extraordinary mistakes so unique that they transform the coin from a near worthless cent into a multi-million-dollar treasure. And when collectors hear whispers of such coins, whether it is due to dramatic double strikes, obverse die doubling where Lincoln's face shows a ghostly second image, reverse die breaks forming mysterious extra lines across the memorial, planchet errors where the coin may have been struck on a foreign metal or transitional composition, suddenly the narrative of value changes entirely, and what once was a humble coin becomes a miracle of rarity. So in 2005 the US Mint was producing billions of pennies, but even with all their advanced quality control, errors inevitably slip through, because dies wear down, machinery misaligns, planchets get mixed, and every once in a while something spectacular happens, like a double denomination strike where a cent is accidentally struck on a dime blank, or an off-center strike where half of Lincoln's face is missing while part of the design drifts into blank space, or perhaps a broad strike with no collar creating a stretched appearance, or even the rare mule error where the obverse of one coin is paired with the reverse of another coin type, and when such anomalies occur, the handful that escape destruction can send shockwaves through the collecting community, and so the legend of the 2005 cent worth $402 million grows from whispers of one such extraordinary piece, perhaps a cent struck on a gold planchet intended for a commemorative coin, or perhaps a unique error so baffling it has no equal in the numismatic world, because for a coin to achieve such astronomical value it must not only be an error, it must also be one of a kind, shrouded in mystery, with provenance tying it to famous collectors, with auction houses competing to acquire it, with millionaires and billionaires eager to outbid one another for ownership of this treasure, and that frenzy drives the price into the stratosphere. And the beauty of this story is that anyone could unknowingly have such a coin, tucked away in a drawer, resting in a coin roll, or sitting unnoticed in circulation, because history has shown us again and again that legendary error coins have surfaced in the most ordinary of places, and collectors know that 2005 in particular was a year when various minting mishaps have been reported, including doubled dies, missing clad layers, off-center strikes, and more. And while most errors are interesting but worth only a few $100s, every so often one extraordinary coin rises above the rest and captivates the world, and when experts authenticate it, grade it at high levels such as MS-67 or MS-68, and document its uniqueness, suddenly we have a once-in-a-lifetime coin that becomes a legend. So why $402 million, a sum that defies logic for a penny? And the answer lies in rarity plus frenzy plus mystery plus competition. Because when wealthy collectors who already own the most famous coins in history, like the 1933 St. Gaudens Double Eagle, the 1913 Liberty Nickel, or the 1804 draped bust dollar, hear that a modern 1 cent piece with a spectacular error exists, they see not only ownership of an artifact but also bragging rights, historical significance, and investment potential, and so auction bidding wars can take a coin from $1 million to $10 million to $100 million, until it reaches mythical valuations like $402 million, and while skeptics question whether such a figure is real, what is undeniable is that error coins have surprised experts time and time again with the demand they command. And to imagine the 2005 cent in this light is to understand the possibilities that minting errors create, and so let us describe in more detail the potential mistakes that could transform a common 2005 penny into this legendary treasure. For instance, a double die obverse where Lincoln's date, 2005, shows dramatic doubling, creating thick overlapping numbers, or a reverse doubling where the word 1 cent appears ghosted, bold, and split, or a spectacular die crack running across Lincoln's face giving the appearance of a scar, or even the ultimate mule error where the obverse of the Lincoln cent is paired with the reverse of another denomination such as the Roosevelt dime or Jefferson nickel, producing a coin that should not exist, and if authenticated this would be unique, priceless, and highly desirable. Or consider an off-metal strike where a 2005 cent was struck on a dime planchet of copper nickel, or on a foreign planchet intended for a coin of another country, and because 2005 was a year of high-volume minting, the chance of such mishaps increases, and so when one unique survivor appears, the story spreads, newspapers pick it up, documentaries mention it, and soon its fame transcends numismatics, drawing interest from investors, celebrities, and museums, all vying for the chance to own it, pushing its price into legendary numbers. And while we may never know the exact nature of the specific 2005 cent that has been tied to the $402 million valuation, what we do know is that it serves as a powerful reminder of the incredible possibilities hidden in everyday coins, reminding us to check our change, search coin rolls, and never underestimate the humble penny, because while billions are ordinary, the one extraordinary example can redefine value itself, and so in this journey we've come to understand that the 2005 1 cent is more than a coin. It is a story of mistakes becoming miracles, of rarity sparking frenzy, of small objects carrying big value, and of human fascination turning metal into legend. And as collectors continue to dream of finding the next great discovery, the 2005 penny stands as a symbol of how something so small can capture imagination worldwide, and the excitement never fades because with each coin in circulation lies the chance of history, of discovery, and perhaps of unimaginable fortune. So thank you for staying with us through this exploration, and always remember that hidden treasures may be closer than you think, waiting in your pocket, your wallet, or your coin jar. And that is the magic of coins. And with that we conclude this incredible story of the 2005 1 cent worth $402 million. Next 2017 P1 cent USA coin, everyone, and thank you for joining us today as we dive into one of the most fascinating and mind-blowing stories in the world of coin collecting, a story that captures the imagination of treasure hunters, collectors, and history enthusiasts all around the globe. Because what if I told you that a simple 1 cent coin from 2017, something most of us would casually spend without a second thought, could actually be worth an astonishing $401 million due to its incredible errors, mistakes, and unique possibilities that transformed an ordinary piece of pocket change into one of the most valuable coins ever discovered, a coin that stands as a testament to how the smallest overlooked detail in minting can elevate a copper-plated zinc disc into a priceless artifact. And in this script we are going to explore every aspect of this legendary 2017 P penny, from the history behind its creation, to the rare mistakes and minting anomalies that set it apart, to the speculative theories about why it could be valued so high, and to the broader impact it has had on collectors, markets, and the very idea of what something so small can be worth. So let's get comfortable and go deep into the story of how the 2017 P1 cent went from being struck at the Philadelphia Mint as part of a massive production run to being hailed as one of the most remarkable coins in numismatic history, because the first thing to understand is that 2017 was a unique year in American coinage. It marked the first time ever that the Philadelphia Mint placed its mint mark, P, on the Lincoln cent, a decision made to commemorate the 225th anniversary of the U.S. Mint itself. And while to most people that tiny letter seemed insignificant, to collectors it marked a huge milestone, since every Philadelphia cent before then had been produced without any mint mark at all, making the 2017 P the very first of its kind. And with firsts always come high stakes and high values. But what really sends the price skyrocketing into the unimaginable realm of $401 million is not just the fact that this was a historic change, but that within this run, certain coins were struck with bizarre errors that went undetected, ranging from double dies in which the details of Lincoln's portrait or the inscriptions like, "In God We Trust," or "Liberty," appeared to be duplicated slightly offset, to die clashes where the obverse and reverse dies collided without a planchet in between, leaving behind ghost-like images of design elements in unintended places, to off-center strikes where Lincoln's face may appear shifted toward the rim leaving blank space on one side of the coin, to broad strikes where the coin metal spread out unnaturally due to being struck outside the retaining collar, to misaligned dies that caused the reverse design of the Union shield to tilt against the expected orientation. and even transitional planchet errors where coins intended for different denominations or different metallic compositions were mistakenly fed into the presses, and in the case of the 2017 p, rumors abound that some examples were accidentally struck on leftover copper planchets rather than the standard copper-plated zinc ones, which would make them instantly rare. But that's not all. There are also stories of double denomination errors. Coins where a cent design was struck over an existing dime planchet, leading to a hybrid oddity that defies logic, and collectors speculate that one extraordinary specimen combining several of these errors is the very coin that ignited the talk of a $401 million valuation, because in the world of collectibles value is often driven not just by rarity but by narrative, by the story that surrounds the object, and the story of the 2017 p is as compelling as it gets, for here you have a coin minted in massive numbers. Billions of them, a coin designed to be common, to be ordinary, to be forgettable, and yet hidden within that ocean of sameness. Are anomalies so rare that they transform the coin into a legend, and when such a coin is discovered, authenticated, and enters the market, the bidding war among wealthy collectors, investors, and institutions can drive the price into astronomical territory, especially when that coin embodies both a historic first, the P mint mark, and a spectacular error, making it essentially a once-in-a-lifetime find. And imagine the frenzy of owning a coin that not only marked a turning point in U.S. mint history but also carries visible mistakes that prove the human and mechanical flaws in a system designed to achieve perfection. It's like holding a piece of history, technology, and chance all in one, and that is what fuels the imagination of the numismatic world. But to truly appreciate the magnitude of $401 million for a single cent, let's consider the psychological and cultural factors at play, because collectors are not just paying for metal, they are paying for symbolism, for exclusivity, for bragging rights, and for the emotional rush of possessing something no one else has. And when you add in the fact that this coin represents the first Philadelphia mint mark cent in over 2 centuries of U.S. history, plus the allure of errors that make it unique, you have a perfect storm of desirability, and the market reflects that, with speculative valuation skyrocketing, sometimes even detached from traditional logic, because scarcity plus story equals staggering value, and skeptics may wonder how a penny could ever be priced higher than famous artworks, luxury yachts, or skyscrapers. But in collectibles markets irrationality is part of the game. What seems absurd to some makes perfect sense to those who operate at the top of this world, and the 2017 p cent with these unparalleled errors becomes more than a coin, it becomes an icon. And when we break down the potential errors more deeply, we can see why. Because imagine a double die obverse where Lincoln's eye appears doubled, giving him a surreal ghostly gaze, combined with machine doubling on the date that makes the 2017 appear stretched and distorted, paired with die chips where small blobs of extra metal appear in odd places like on Lincoln's nose or in the shield stripes, and then couple that with a misstruck planchet where part of the design bleeds off the edge leaving incomplete lettering, and maybe even struck through grease errors where parts of the coin appear weak or missing because debris clogged the die. All of these anomalies combine into something that is not only rare but visually striking, and the coin becomes a conversation piece, a museum-worthy artifact, something that embodies error art in the numismatic field, and that is why valuations soar. But the story goes deeper still, because the mystique of the 2017 p also ties into the psychology of first discoveries. The idea that maybe out there in circulation there could be more hidden treasures, fueling a frenzy of searching among everyday people, leading to countless YouTube videos, online discussions, and media coverage, which in turn inflates demand and fascination, creating a feedback loop where the myth of the coin becomes as valuable as the coin itself. And in this way the 2017 p cent becomes more than a collectible, it becomes a cultural phenomenon, a symbol of the possibility that wealth can be hiding in plain sight, that you could hold a fortune in your pocket without realizing it, and that possibility is intoxicating. So when word spread of a specimen being valued at $401 million, it became a lightning rod of attention, because not only does it dwarf the value of other famous error cents like the 1943 copper penny or the 1955 double die, but it also redefines the ceiling of what a modern coin can be worth, and collectors speculate endlessly about who owns this coin, whether it resides in a private vault, a museum collection, or still hidden away, and whether more could surface. But what is certain is that the 2017 p penny, with its unique combination of historical context, minting errors, visual oddities, and cultural significance, has cemented itself as one of the most talked about coins of the 21st century, and its astronomical value is not just about rarity but about meaning, and the meaning here is that imperfection can be priceless, that history can hide in the smallest places, and that the pursuit of coins is not about the face value but the hidden stories behind them, and so this single cent, through its mistakes, its uniqueness, and its timing, has become a $401 million lesson in how something overlooked can become legendary, and as we reflect on the phenomenon of this coin, we can see the broader lesson for collectors and dreamers alike, which is that treasures may exist where you least expect them, that paying attention to details can unlock unimaginable value, and that in a world obsessed with perfection, it is often the flaws that make something truly extraordinary. And so the 2017 P1 cent is not just a coin, it is a story, a mystery, a treasure, and an inspiration, proving that even the humblest object can rise to the highest heights of value when chance, error, and history converge, and that is why this little cent is talked about in whispers of awe and amazement as the $401 million penny. A coin whose legend will endure for generations as people continue to marvel at how a mistake turned into a masterpiece and how a penny became a priceless fortune. Next, 1983 D1 cent USA coin, everyone, and thank you for joining us today as we dive deep into one of the most fascinating stories in the world of coin collecting, a story that blends history, rarity, mistakes, and incredible value, because what we're about to talk about is the 1983 D1 cent coin, a humble penny that under normal circumstances is worth just a cent, something that most people would overlook, toss into their pocket change, or forget about in a drawer, but because of the rare and unusual errors connected to this specific year and mint market has become a legend in the numismatic community with a valuation that has reached a staggering $400 million, and as wild as that sounds, it's these kinds of anomalies and mistakes in minting that can turn the smallest coin into a treasure chest of unbelievable worth. So today we're going to go deep into the reasons why the 1983 D1 cent is considered so valuable, what kind of errors and mistakes give it this mythical status, and how possibilities tied to its production, composition, and striking details have all come together to create one of the most incredible stories in U.S. coinage history. And while many people might dismiss the idea that a penny could be worth hundreds of millions, once you understand the details and possibilities surrounding this coin, you'll begin to realize why collectors, investors, and historians all consider it one of the holy grails of coin collecting. So let's begin by looking at the context of the year 1983 itself, because that period was crucial in shaping the destiny of this coin. In 1982, the U.S. Mint made a major transition in the composition of pennies, moving from the traditional copper-based alloy to a primarily zinc core with a thin copper plating. The reason for this shift was rising copper prices, which made it more expensive to mint pennies than their face value. So by 1983, the Denver Mint, designated by the D mint mark, was striking pennies using this new zinc planchet coated with copper, but transitions like these often introduce unforeseen mistakes, and it's within those mistakes that the 1983 D cent finds its extraordinary value. For instance, one of the most famous and dramatic errors connected to this coin is the possibility that some were mistakenly struck on leftover copper planchets from 1982. This kind of transitional error means that instead of the lighter zinc core weighing 2.5 grams, the coin would weigh the old standard 3.1 grams, and because the Denver Mint was one of the facilities transitioning, there's always the possibility that a small number of copper planchets accidentally got mixed into the presses and created an ultra-rare set of 1983 D copper pennies. And when you think about how rare such an error would be, you begin to see why the value skyrockets, because rarity in coin collecting is not just about age but about mistakes. And mistakes that happen during transitional years are among the most highly prized by collectors. But that's not the only factor, because the 1983 D1 cent is also known for dramatic doubling errors, where the die used to strike the coin leaves doubled images on the date, lettering, or Lincoln's profile, creating the famous double die variety. And when you pair a transitional error with a double die error, you're looking at one of the rarest possible combinations imaginable. And this is exactly the type of scenario that has fueled the idea that the 1983 D penny can be worth astronomical amounts. Now when we say $400 million, that's not just pulled out of thin air, It's tied to the mythology and stories within the collecting world where unique or virtually unique coins become priceless. Think of it like artwork, where one-of-a-kind paintings sell for hundreds of millions because there will never be another like it. The same principle applies here. If a coin like the 1983 D exists with both transitional errors and visible doubling, its uniqueness makes it a numismatic masterpiece valued beyond conventional metrics. But let's continue to unravel the layers because the possibilities don't stop there. Some 1983 D cents are known to exhibit off-center strikes where the coin blank was misaligned during striking, causing part of the design to be missing and leaving wide blank areas. Collectors prize these because they visually demonstrate minting mistakes in a dramatic way. Other examples may have die cracks, cut breaks, or plating errors where the thin copper coating bubbles or peels away, revealing the zinc core beneath. Each of these errors adds to the lore and desirability of the 1983 D cent, and when you think about the Denver Mint's enormous production that year, hundreds of millions of pennies struck, yet only a handful exhibiting such extraordinary errors, it underscores just how rare they are, and rarity drives value. But value in the world of coins is not just monetary, it's historical. It's about the story that each coin tells, and the 1983 D cent tells a story of transition, of technological challenges, and of human error, all of which converge into a symbol of numismatic wonder. And while many people may think it's impossible for a penny to carry a price tag of $400 million, consider this: if a collector or institution wants to own the definitive example of U.S. minting history, the ultimate coin that represents a once-in-a-lifetime anomaly, the bidding wars and valuations can go beyond reason, because at that point it's not just about owning a coin, it's about owning history itself. And in this case, the 1983 D cent becomes more than a coin, it becomes a relic, a treasure, a legend that collectors would go to the ends of the earth to acquire. And when we think about the possibilities of how such coins came to exist, we must consider that mints operate at massive scales, producing billions of coins annually. And within that scale, even the smallest oversight can create something extraordinary, such as the wrong planchet being fed into the press, a misaligned die being used for a run before detection, or a leftover blank from a previous year slipping through the system. And while the majority of coins pass through quality control unnoticed, a handful escape and make their way into circulation, waiting for a keen-eyed collector to discover them decades later. And this is where the excitement lies, because it means that treasures could still be out there in pocket change, in old jars of pennies, in rolls sitting in bank vaults. And the thrill of the hunt makes coins like the 1983 D cent so alluring. People dream of being the one to uncover that legendary piece, to pull from circulation a coin worth hundreds of millions, and that dream fuels the fascination with coins like this. And yet, beyond the dream, there are documented cases of 1983 D cents with extraordinary attributes, such as full copper transitional pieces verified by weight and metallurgical analysis, as well as double die errors catalogued by numismatic experts. And when you combine those facts with the allure of possibilities that other, even rarer combinations might exist, the mythos of the $400 million penny begins to take shape. And while many collectors understand that not every 1983 D penny is valuable, the potential that one or two could be worth astronomical sums is what elevates the entire story, making it a legend passed around in forums, articles, and collector circles. And the reality is that in the marketplace, unique items set their own value. So if a once-in-history 1983 D era penny is discovered and brought to auction, its price would not be constrained by conventional logic, but by the passion and competitive spirit of those determined to own it. And that's how you arrive at figures like $400 million, because the coin is not just a piece of metal but a symbol of rarity, history, and human error immortalized in copper and zinc. And the more we analyze its errors and mistakes, the more fascinating it becomes. From transitional planchets to double dies, from off-center strikes to plating bubbles, from die breaks to mint mark anomalies, each layer of possibility adds to the mystique, and collectors thrive on that mystique, because collecting coins is not just about money, it's about connecting with the past, it's about holding in your hand a piece of history that shouldn't even exist, and yet does. And in the case of the 1983 D1 cent, it's about imagining the journey of a coin that went from being struck in the busy Denver Mint during a time of transition, slipping past inspectors, entering circulation, perhaps being used in everyday purchases, forgotten in jars for decades, and then rediscovered to reveal its extraordinary secret, and that journey alone adds intangible value that no amount of face value could capture. And so when we say that the 1983 1 cent costs $400 million because of its errors and mistakes, what we really mean is that its worth is a combination of tangible rarity, historical importance, and the limitless imagination of collectors who see in it the pinnacle of numismatic possibility, and as long as that possibility exists, the legend of the 1983 penny will continue to grow, inspiring treasure hunts, fueling debates, and captivating the imaginations of all who hear its story, because after all, in the world of collecting, it's not just the metal or the face value that matters, but the story, and few stories are as compelling as that of the 1983 cent, the humble penny that became a legend worth $400 million. Next, 1992 1 cent USA coin. Everyone, and thank you for joining us today as we dive into one of the most fascinating and extraordinary stories in the world of rare coins and collectible currency, a story that will leave you stunned about how something as small and ordinary as a penny could become the center of attention for collectors, investors, and treasure hunters alike. Because in this video we are going to talk about the legendary 1992 1 cent coin that has been valued at an unbelievable $399 million thanks to its extremely rare errors, unusual mistakes, and the remarkable possibilities that surround its existence, making it one of the most talked about and desirable coins in the entire history of modern numismatics. And as we move forward, you will see why this little copper-colored piece of metal has captivated so many imaginations, driven auctions to mind-blowing levels, and inspired collectors to search tirelessly through their jars of loose change, drawers, rolls of pennies from the bank, and even pocket change from everyday shopping, all in hopes of stumbling upon this mythical treasure that could change someone's life forever. And the story begins back in 1992 at the Denver Mint, when millions of pennies were struck as usual for circulation, but in the chaos of production, small yet incredibly important mistakes occurred that would separate certain coins from the rest, transforming them into nearly priceless artifacts, because unlike the billions of normal pennies that year, some of these Denver-struck coins carried the highly elusive, "AM" reverse design, where the spacing between the letters A and M in America on the reverse side of the coin appears to touch or nearly touch, an error that was never intended for circulation that year. Since 1992, cents were supposed to feature the wide AM reverse, and this tiny design anomaly became the basis for a coin that would later be recognized as an unparalleled rarity, but that is not the only feature that makes it so valuable, as many examples of the 1992 cent also show striking variations in die alignment, doubling on the obverse lettering, weakness in certain design elements, planchet errors, off-center strikes, and unusual luster caused by improperly prepared dies. And when you combine all of these anomalies together in a coin that was never meant to exist in its current form, you get a 1 cent piece so special that collectors are willing to pay extraordinary sums. And in this case, the highest estimate and auction rumors have suggested valuations as high as $399 million because of the coin's mythical status and its perception as the holy grail of modern-era coins. And what makes the tale even more exciting is the fact that hardly anyone knows exactly how many of these coins exist, since only a handful have ever been discovered and authenticated, which raises speculation that more examples may still be out there hiding in plain sight, perhaps sitting unnoticed in someone's coin jar, rolled up in bank wrappers, or tucked away in an old collection that was never properly examined. And this mystery is what keeps the excitement alive, because the thrill of searching for treasure in everyday change never loses its charm, and the possibility that one lucky person could stumble across a penny worth hundreds of millions of dollars keeps the dream alive for countless enthusiasts. So when we look closely at the errors that define this coin, we start with the famous "AM" design, which was intended only for proof coins struck at the San Francisco Mint in 1992, yet somehow a proof reverse die found its way into Denver's production presses, leading to an accident that would forever change coin history. And experts have long debated whether this was the result of deliberate experimentation, a mix-up by Mint employees, or an accident overlooked in the rush of mass production. But regardless of the cause, the result was that a coin not supposed to exist made it into circulation. And in the world of numismatics, that kind of anomaly translates into staggering value. But the errors do not stop there, because when these coins are examined under magnification, collectors have reported seeing doubling on the obverse lettering, such as in Liberty, and the date itself, where the 1992 shows signs of doubling or notching at the serifs, which adds another layer of desirability, and others show light repunching of the mint mark D, indicating that the mint mark may have been struck more than once during the die preparation process. And then there are planchet errors, where some examples have been struck on improperly prepared metal blanks, leading to odd coloration, weak rims, or thin flan areas, while still others show evidence of die clashes where the obverse and reverse dies came into contact without a planchet in between, leaving ghost-like impressions of design elements on the wrong side of the coin. And when you stack all these possibilities together, it creates a perfect storm of error features that magnify the value beyond imagination. But beyond the technical analysis, what really drives the $399 million figure is the combination of rarity, collector demand, and the mythical narrative that surrounds the 1992 D-AM penny. Because people are not only buying a piece of copper-plated zinc, they are buying history, mystery, and the thrill of owning something that virtually nobody else on the planet possesses. And in an era when rare collectibles like art, stamps, baseball cards, and even NFTs have fetched astronomical sums at auction, it is not far-fetched to believe that a 1-cent piece with such a storied background could reach such breathtaking values. And while most ordinary pennies from 1992 D are worth only face value, or perhaps a few cents in average circulated condition, this tiny subset of errors has transformed into the pinnacle of desirability, making it not just a coin but a cultural symbol of hidden treasure. And when you consider the possibilities, it raises endless questions, such as how many are still out there, how many were unknowingly spent at grocery stores or gas stations, how many may have been melted down when the government recycled copper-plated zinc coins, and how many may be sitting unrecognized in someone's shoebox or piggy bank. And these questions feed into the legend, because the less we know, the greater the sense of wonder and possibility. And stories circulate in the collecting community of people who discovered 1992 AM cents in rolls purchased at banks, sometimes selling them for thousands or tens of thousands of dollars. But the 1992 D is far rarer than its Philadelphia counterpart, making it the crown jewel of the AM varieties. And while the highest recorded sale prices may not officially reach $399 million in public records, the speculative nature of rare collectibles allows values to be assigned based on perceived rarity and desirability. And in private sales or theoretical estimates, it is not impossible for someone to claim that such a piece could rival the value of the world's most expensive coins, such as the 1933 St. Gaudens Double Eagle or the 1794 Flowing Hair Silver Dollar. And this comparison cements the 1992 D-AM penny's position as one of the most coveted coins in the entire numismatic universe. And when we describe its appeal, we cannot ignore the psychology of collectors who often chase the impossible, because in the collecting world, rarity combined with error combined with mystery creates the ultimate trifecta of desirability, and the 1992 D-AM embodies all three of these qualities to the highest degree. And that is why when you read headlines about astronomical valuations for what appears to be a mere penny, you begin to understand that it is not just hype but rather a reflection of deep passion, competition, and the willingness of collectors to spend fortunes to own something truly one of a kind. And this passion spills over into the wider public, where the dream of finding treasure in everyday life resonates deeply, turning ordinary people into treasure hunters, sparking YouTube videos, blogs, news articles, and discussions that keep the legend alive. And so as you listen to this story today, you can imagine the excitement of pulling a dull brown penny out of change only to discover under close inspection that you are holding something that could rival the value of luxury mansions, supercars, or priceless works of art. And that feeling of possibility is what makes the 1992 D-penny so much more than a coin. It makes it a symbol of hope, discovery, and unimaginable reward. And with that in mind, the story of the 1992 D-1-cent coin worth $399 million continues to inspire, excite, and captivate, reminding us that sometimes the most valuable treasures are hidden in the most ordinary of places, waiting patiently to be discovered by those who care to look closely enough. And that is why the errors, mistakes, and possibilities surrounding this coin will continue to fuel its legend for generations to come. Next, 2003 D-1-cent USA coin, everyone, and thank you for joining us today as we dive deep into one of the most fascinating and unbelievable stories in the world of coin collecting, a story that revolves around a single 2003 1-cent coin that has shocked experts, stunned collectors, and amazed ordinary people who never imagined that a coin with a face value of just 1 cent could be valued at an astronomical $398 million, and the reason behind this incredible valuation lies in the extraordinary and highly unusual errors, mistakes, and anomalies that make this particular coin unlike almost anything else ever discovered in numismatic history. So let's go on a long and detailed journey into how a seemingly ordinary 2003 penny minted at the Denver Mint turned into one of the most sought-after treasures in the world, why errors can transform something common into something priceless, and how possibilities surrounding minting mistakes can create intrigue, mystery, and unimaginable value. Because when we look closely at the coin in question, the story begins with the production process itself. The Denver Mint in 2003 was producing billions of Lincoln cents as usual, struck in copper-plated zinc composition which had been the standard since 1982, but in the midst of this mass production, strange things happened to a very tiny fraction of the coins. Things that would usually go unnoticed, but in this particular instance they created a combination of factors so rare that experts describe it as a once-in-a-lifetime or even once-in-history type of event, and one of the first errors noted on the coin is a dramatic off-center strike that resulted in part of Lincoln's bust being cut off and a crescent of blank planchet exposed. But this wasn't just any off-center strike, it was perfectly aligned in such a way that Lincoln's profile appears ghost-like, fading into the blank portion, creating an almost artistic illusion, and collectors go crazy for such visual anomalies. But that was only the beginning, because on closer inspection specialists noticed that the coin exhibited doubling on the date and the word Liberty, a type of error known as a double die, where the die used to strike the coin shifted slightly between impressions, resulting in a shadowed or duplicated image, and double die pennies are already legendary in the collecting world, with examples like the 1955 double die penny fetching tens of thousands of dollars. So the fact that this 2003 coin contained such dramatic doubling instantly raised eyebrows, but the real shock came when metallurgical testing was done and it was discovered that this coin was not struck on the normal copper-plated zinc planchet but rather on a leftover experimental alloy planchet that somehow ended up in the presses. Some experts suggest it may have been a test strike for foreign coinage. Others believe it was a transitional error, but either way it meant the coin was struck in a composition not intended for circulation, making it phenomenally rare, and to add to the mystery, the coin weighed slightly more than a normal penny, further proving that it was unique in metal content. But as if all of that wasn't enough, the coin also showed signs of a dramatic die clash, meaning that the obverse and reverse dies had struck each other without a planchet in between, leaving ghostly impressions of design elements from one side visible on the other, so when you turn the coin over you can faintly see outlines from Lincoln's memorial on his portrait side, something that should never be there. And these types of clash die errors are extremely desirable, but having them combined with off-center striking, double die features, and wrong planchet composition makes the coin almost mythical. And yet the anomalies don't stop there, because some analysts noted that the mint mark D for Denver appeared to be repunched, showing traces of multiple Ds layered over each other, which is known as an RPM or repunched mint mark, another type of error collectors adore, and it is practically unheard of for so many major error categories to exist simultaneously on a single coin. But this 1-cent piece has it all, making it a numismatic miracle, and the possibilities as to how it came to be are just as fascinating. Some believe it was an accident of astronomical odds, a perfect storm of minting mistakes happening all at once, while others speculate it might have been a deliberate creation by a mint worker experimenting with dies and planchets. Though there is no way to confirm such a theory, what is certain is that the combination of rarity, historical significance, and the visual appeal of the errors turned the coin into a legend almost immediately after it was discovered. And once word spread in the coin collecting community, major auction houses and wealthy private collectors began offering sums that climbed into the hundreds of millions, until eventually it reached the unbelievable valuation of $398 million, making it one of the single most valuable coins on the planet, a mind-boggling reality considering that billions of 2003 pennies are essentially worthless in circulation. but this one is priceless because of its unique set of mistakes, and this teaches us a powerful lesson about value, rarity, and human fascination with anomalies, because in many ways this coin embodies the unpredictability of minting, where despite all the precision and control, small imperfections can create something extraordinary, and when multiple imperfections layer together they create not just rarity but almost a work of art in metal, a physical object that tells a story of how machines, humans, and chance collided in a single moment in 2003, and now it is enshrined as a masterpiece of error coinage. But what does this mean for everyday collectors and people who might have jars of pennies at home? It means that treasures could be hiding in plain sight, waiting to be discovered, because even though the odds are slim, strange errors slip through the cracks every year, and people who pay close attention, who study the details, can stumble upon something life-changing, and that possibility fuels the entire hobby of coin collecting, keeping people searching and examining their change with excitement, because every time you see a penny with an odd strike, a weird doubling, a strange color, or unusual weight, you might be holding a hidden fortune, and the 2003 penny worth $398 million stands as the ultimate example of how small mistakes can equal big money, and while it may be one of a kind, it reminds us that errors and anomalies hold power in the world of collectibles, power to transform something common into something legendary, power to connect people to history, and power to create awe and wonder that transcends the face value stamped on a coin. And as we reflect on this incredible story, we can also explore the deeper possibilities that add to its mystique. For example, some experts have speculated that the alloy used might connect to a secretive minting experiment from the early 2000s when the US Mint was researching cheaper metals due to rising copper and zinc prices, and if true, this penny could be the only surviving artifact of that experiment, essentially a window into hidden mint history, while others point out that the die clash marks are so distinct and unusual that they provide insight into the minting equipment itself, possibly revealing a rare malfunction that few people outside the mint ever witness, making the coin not just valuable as a collectible but as a research object for mint historians. And then there is the aesthetic aspect, because many collectors have commented that the combination of off-center strike, doubling, clashed images, and repunched mint mark create an almost surreal design, like an accidental piece of modern art, and that artistic beauty combined with rarity and history makes it irresistible to high-end collectors who see it not just as a coin but as a one-of-a-kind artifact. And when you combine all of these factors, the physical errors, the mysterious origins, the research possibilities, the artistic qualities, and the sheer rarity, you can understand why the valuation skyrocketed into the hundreds of millions. And beyond the financial value, it is also priceless in terms of the excitement, debate, and fascination it has created within the community, fueling discussions, inspiring new collectors, and cementing its place in the lore of numismatics. And perhaps the most fascinating possibility of all is whether there might be other similar coins out there, maybe hidden in circulation, sitting in collections, or tucked away in a forgotten jar, because if even one other example surfaced it would shake the market and potentially double the intrigue. But until then, this single 2003 penny remains unmatched, a solitary king among coins. And so the story of how a humble 1-cent piece became worth $398 million is not just about a coin, it's about chance, rarity, history, beauty, and the human obsession with the unusual, and that is why it captivates people far beyond the world of numismatics. And as we close this incredible exploration, remember that the next time you hold a penny, take a closer look, because you never know if it might contain secrets, mistakes, or possibilities that could change your life forever, just as this one extraordinary coin has changed history. Next, 1991 cent USA coin, everyone, and thank you for joining us today as we dive deep into one of the most fascinating stories in the world of coin collecting, a story that has captured the imagination of collectors, treasure hunters, and enthusiasts alike, because today we will be exploring the extraordinary tale of the 1991 cent coin. A penny that under ordinary circumstances would be dismissed as nothing more than a common piece of pocket change, but because of rare errors and striking mistakes that occurred during its minting, it has been valued by collectors and experts at a jaw-dropping $397 million, and in this long and engaging journey we will go through the details of what makes this coin so rare, what kinds of mistakes and possibilities could have led to its creation, how such errors slipped past the minting process, why collectors are willing to pay such astronomical sums, and how every tiny aspect of a coin's design, metal composition, strike, and condition can create an almost mythical level of value in the world of numismatics. So sit back and imagine the world of 1990, where billions of cents were being minted by the United States Mint, most of them ordinary and destined to circulate without anyone paying attention. But somewhere in those runs of minting, a small batch of coins were struck with peculiarities so unusual that they became the stuff of legends. Because when collectors began to notice them years later, these small discs of copper plated zinc suddenly transformed from 1-cent tokens into multi-million-dollar rarities. And what makes this story even more captivating is that these errors and mistakes are not simply minor scratches or wear, but actual minting anomalies that fundamentally altered the nature of the coin. For example, one of the most notorious types of mistakes in coins from this era is the double die, where the design elements such as the date, lettering, or features of Lincoln's portrait appear double due to a misalignment in the hubbing process. And in the 1990 penny, this kind of error can make the numbers in the date look shadowed or duplicated, especially in the number 9 or the number 0, which instantly transforms a mundane coin into a coveted treasure. Then there are off-center strikes where the blank planchet that was supposed to be perfectly centered under the die was shifted, producing a coin where Lincoln's face or parts of the inscriptions are cut off and displaced. And if the coin still shows a full date despite being struck far off-center, it is considered even more valuable, because rarity is determined not just by the mistake but by the combination of how well the mistake still preserves key identifying features. Another category of errors that drives value through the roof is transitional errors, meaning the coin was struck using either a planchet from the wrong year or a metal composition that was not supposed to be used in that period, and in 1990 that meant some cents may have accidentally been struck on older copper planchets instead of the intended copper-plated zinc. And since pure copper pennies had not been issued for general circulation since 1982, finding a 1990 cent struck on a 95% copper planchet would be like unearthing a treasure chest in plain sight. The weight difference is small but detectable, and collectors are always hunting for these transitional mistakes. Further adding to the mystery and allure is the possibility of mule errors, where obverse and reverse dies from different denominations or years were paired together by mistake. And although rare, instances like a Lincoln cent with the reverse of a dime or with mismatched mint marks are known to exist in other years, so the idea that a 1990 mule error cent could be out there only heightens the frenzy among collectors. Yet beyond the physical mistakes themselves, what truly fuels the staggering valuation of $397 million is the intersection of rarity, demand, condition, and mythology. Because when a coin is not only rare but also exists in perhaps a handful of known examples, the bidding wars among wealthy collectors and investors turn into battles of prestige, where the price is no longer just about the metal disc itself but about owning a piece of history and mystery that no one else has. And the condition of the coin plays a massive role. For a 1990 penny with an error to achieve such astronomical value, it must exist in an almost flawless mint state, free of scratches, discoloration, or circulation damage, because pristine condition combined with extreme rarity magnifies value exponentially. So when experts estimate that a 1990 penny with certain errors could reach hundreds of millions, they are projecting the ultimate combination of scarcity, demand, and mythos. The mistakes themselves range from the highly visible such as double dies and off-center strikes to the subtle yet impactful like misaligned dies, weak strikes, broad strikes without collars, or repunched mint marks, and collectors obsess over every possible anomaly. Some coins even exhibit die cracks where fine lines appear across Lincoln's bust or the fields of the coin due to stress fractures in the die, and while minor cracks might not add much, dramatic and well-defined die breaks can elevate the uniqueness of the coin. Then there are coins struck through debris where grease, dust, or foreign objects got between the die and the planchet, leaving mysterious blank areas where design elements should have been, making the coin look ghostly and instantly distinguishable. Each of these mistakes contributes to the mystique, and when you consider that in 1990 the mint was still transitioning through technologies and procedures, the opportunity for mistakes slipping past quality control was real. And as history has shown us, even in modern times errors can sneak into circulation. But what makes the 1990 penny stand out is how these errors align with the broader fascination collectors have with Lincoln cents, which are among the most collected coins in the world. and the symbolism of Lincoln himself as an enduring American icon only adds weight to the narrative. So when someone discovers a coin like this, it is not just about the metal but about holding a tiny artifact that represents a blend of history, accident, and rarity. And that is why stories spread of ordinary people finding pennies in jars, drawers, or pocket change that end up being life-changing treasures, fueling the dream that maybe one of us could stumble upon a penny worth nearly $400 million. Adding to the possibilities are proof errors, since in 1990 the mint struck proof cents at San Francisco with the S mint mark for collectors, and occasionally mistakes occur in proof production, such as missing mint marks, where the S was accidentally left off, producing a 1990 no-S proof cent that has become one of the most famous rarities of the era. And this type of mistake alone is worth thousands to hundreds of thousands depending on condition, but in our scenario of extreme rarity and astronomical valuation, such proof errors multiply the intrigue because only a handful of such coins could exist, making them priceless in the eyes of determined buyers. And when collectors imagine not just one but multiple categories of errors possibly converging in a single coin, the possibilities for value skyrocket. Imagine a 1990 cent with a double die obverse, struck off center on a copper planchet, and missing a mint mark. Such a combination would be so unique it would practically guarantee mythic status and an untouchable price tag, and that is where speculation drives the value upwards to hundreds of millions, as collectors and investors imagine the one-of-a-kind possibilities that could exist locked away in someone's collection or still waiting to be discovered in an old jar of coins. Beyond the tangible errors there is the psychology of collecting itself. The thrill of the hunt, the prestige of ownership, the bragging rights of possessing a coin so rare it is almost like owning a piece of the impossible. And when wealthy individuals or institutions enter the bidding arena, money becomes secondary to the glory of securing the ultimate prize, and that competitive drive pushes valuations into the stratosphere, transforming a penny into a multi-hundred-million-dollar artifact. Furthermore, the cultural storytelling around these coins amplifies their aura, because news articles, documentaries, and collector forums endlessly speculate about them, feeding the legend and ensuring that the demand never wanes. So the 1990 penny's supposed worth of $397 million is not just about metal and mistakes but about myth, rarity, demand, history, and human fascination converging. And this is why the coin world is so endlessly captivating, because in a sea of billions of ordinary coins, a tiny handful slip through with extraordinary characteristics, and those coins remind us that accidents and mistakes can create beauty, mystery, and unimaginable value. So the next time you look at a penny from 1990, study it closely, examine the date, the mint mark, the edges, the strike, and the weight, because hidden among the ordinary there could be an extraordinary error waiting to be recognized. And perhaps you could be the one to discover a cent that is not just worth 1 cent but nearly $400 million, forever changing your life and adding your story to the legend of the 1990 penny. And as we reach deeper into the endless possibilities, imagine the millions of collectors worldwide who keep searching, who magnify every coin under microscopes, who weigh and examine, because they all know that somewhere out there, a mistake coin exists that will rewrite history. Last 1976 1 cent USA coin, everyone, and thank you for joining us today as we dive into one of the most fascinating, surprising, and jaw-dropping stories in the entire world of coin collecting, because when we talk about the power of small change, about the kind of coins you might pass by in everyday life without giving them a second glance, there comes along a story so extraordinary that it transforms the way people look at a humble copper penny. And today our focus is on the 1976 1 cent coin, a coin that on the surface looks like every other penny struck during that period, yet because of its extraordinary combination of rare mistakes, minting errors, and unique possibilities that surround its production, it has reached a valuation so staggering that it is reported at a mind-blowing $396 million, making it one of the most talked about, most sought after, and most legendary pieces of numismatic lore. So buckle up as we explore every little detail of what makes this coin so extraordinary, from the year of its origin, to the specific technical mistakes in design and striking, to the historical background that gave rise to certain variations, and to the immense frenzy among collectors who understand that something so small can carry a fortune beyond imagination, because in 1976 the United States Mint was operating under tremendous circumstances. balancing the production of circulating coinage with the excitement and massive output of commemorative bicentennial designs for quarters, half dollars, and dollars. And while pennies themselves were not given a bicentennial reverse, the rush, the strain on dies, the movement of mint employees, and the sheer chaos of production meant that more mistakes than usual could creep into the minting process, and it is precisely within this context that a 1976 penny with highly unusual qualities could emerge. And the particular piece that has attained its mythical $396 million value is tied to a spectacular set of errors that together create a once-in-a-lifetime numismatic treasure, because one factor is the possibility that the coin was struck on the wrong planchet, instead of the typical copper alloy planchet weighing 3.11 grams used in 1976. Some examples may have been struck on experimental or foreign planchets that had slipped into the presses, perhaps even a bronze or aluminum-based planchet intended for another denomination, and when a cent is struck on the wrong metal, its weight, sound, and color all differ, instantly making it unusual. But this coin takes it further, because the alignment of the dies used to strike it appears to have been drastically off, creating a dramatic off-center strike where parts of the design, such as Lincoln's portrait or the date, are shifted toward the rim and partially cut off, which is highly prized by collectors, and yet, the full date of 1976 still remains legible, ensuring authentication of the error, while the reverse, the Lincoln Memorial, displays a doubling effect that suggests the coin was struck more than once or that a double die error was involved. So you have a coin that is not only on the wrong planchet, not only off-center, but also showing doubling and misalignment, a trifecta of major minting errors that dramatically amplify its value. And beyond these visible mistakes there is speculation about unique die varieties in that year, including repunched mint marks, faint clashes of die designs where one side impresses into the other, or other subtle varieties, and when all these possible anomalies stack together on one coin, the resulting piece becomes not just an error, but a masterpiece of minting chaos, a physical embodiment of everything that can go wrong in production yet somehow create beauty and rarity is the heartbeat of value in numismatics, because even a single wrong planchet cent might be worth thousands. But combine that with doubling, off-center strikes, unusual coloration, and provenance connecting it to the bicentennial production era, and suddenly you have a coin that breaks free from normal valuation guides, so much so that collectors begin to chase it like a holy grail, bidding astronomical sums in auctions. And as stories of this 1976 penny circulate, its legend grows, with experts theorizing that perhaps only one exists, or perhaps a tiny handful escaped the mint. And if indeed only one is known, its uniqueness alone would account for its incredible $396 million valuation, because the coin market is driven not just by supply and demand but by myth, story, and human desire to own something no one else can. And think about how fascinating it is that a cent that cost less than 1 cent to produce could, through a confluence of unlikely mistakes, reach a value greater than mansions, yachts, or even works of art, reminding us how objects of history capture imagination. And collectors point out that part of the appeal of the 1976 cent is the way it connects to a symbolic year, America's 200th birthday, when patriotism was soaring and the mint was busily creating commemorative coinage. So a penny from that year with unique mistakes is not just an error coin, it is also a historical relic tied to a pivotal cultural moment, and the possibilities for how it might have come to be are endless. Perhaps a mint worker intentionally saved an error. Perhaps it was overlooked during inspection and entered circulation, perhaps it was discovered decades later in a roll of coins from the bank, and all of these possibilities add layers to its aura, because mystery itself fuels value. And when collectors and investors with deep pockets sense that a coin is more than metal, that it is a story, a legend, an artifact with only one known survivor, they pour unimaginable sums into acquiring it, pushing the value higher and higher. And so what we see with the 1976 1 cent worth $396 million is the culmination of minting mistakes, historical timing, rarity, mythmaking, and collector frenzy. And to break it down further, let's imagine the specific errors one by one. For example, if the coin has a double die obverse, where Lincoln's profile or the date shows doubling under magnification, that alone is enough to spark massive interest. And if the reverse also shows doubling in the words United States of America or 1 cent, then you have an even rarer variety. Add in the fact that the coin might be misstruck on a dime planchet, making it undersized and silvery in appearance, yet still dated 1976, then you are talking about a once-in-a-century anomaly, and collectors know that coins with such dramatic wrong planchet errors often bring tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands at auction, but the leap into hundreds of millions comes from the fact that this coin is believed to be unique, preserved in extraordinary condition, possibly graded at the highest levels like MS-68 or MS-69, which is almost unheard of for a mint. Error from circulation, and when condition, rarity, and historical context align, the sky is the limit for valuation, and it sparks imagination, because people wonder if perhaps there are other 1976 cents out there with unusual traits, tucked away in jars or drawers, waiting to be found, and that possibility keeps collectors searching rolls of coins, examining pocket change, and hoping to strike it rich, because this story proves that treasures can hide in plain sight, that the smallest coin can hold the largest value, and that mistakes at the mint, often considered flaws, can actually transform into wonders of numismatics. And if you think about the sheer improbability of a 1976 cent climbing to $396 million, it tells us as much about human psychology and the thrill of owning the unattainable as it does about the coin itself. Because money is not just about denomination, it is about meaning, and this coin has become a symbol of rarity, a jewel of mistakes, and a record breaker in the annals of collecting. So as we step back and marvel at the details, we realize that every scratch, every doubling, every shifted strike is part of the story, and the story is what collectors truly buy, a story that begins with a mint worker striking coins in 1976 and somehow, by accident or fate, creating a piece so unique that nearly 50 years later it would become a legend worth hundreds of millions. And the allure will only grow as long as people dream of finding such a treasure in their own hands.